The story kicks off with the whole city straight up burning, flames everywhere under this creepy blood-red sky. People are sprinting for their lives, and over all that chaos, some sinister voice telling everyone that the nightmare era is only just getting started. From inside the fire and darkness, this massive winged figure starts rising, basically promising even more destruction. Then it shows itself clearly, a dark angel, a level 4 enemy. Without hesitation, the creature starts spamming energy blasts non-stop, wiping out literally everything. Watching from far away, two girls see the whole disaster go down, totally helpless. The redhead freezes, because she realizes it's a level 4 monster, the kind that can erase an entire country. Her blonde friend tries to hype her up, saying she'll fight with her, but the redhead tells her to focus on getting civilians out. Even with everything falling apart, the red-haired girl decides she'll stall the monster, even if she only buys like one tiny minute. Her partner is stressing, but the redhead promises she'll somehow make it out alive. Right then, an emergency alert goes off, calling every awakened person to the local university. The girl admits she's only a level 3 awakened, but she's ready to push through as much as she can. Meanwhile, the Dark Angel starts gearing up for another attack, muttering some creepy nonsense no one can understand. Then it charges at them, and the redhead yells at her friend to run like her life depends on it. Suddenly, a dark-haired guy shows up and tells her to move aside. She's stunned as this dude preps his attack, and without giving the creature even a millisecond, he deletes it with one insane punch. The Dark Angel instantly freezes into a stone statue, and the guy casually poses in front of it like a boss. The two girls are speechless, realizing he legit one-shotted a level 4 monster. Smirking, he says, "It's been ages since he last saw a human." Then he asks what year it is, leaving the redhead confused. She stammers, asking the boy's identity, while the blonde freaks out behind her. But he asks again, sounding darker this time. In fear, she replies that it's October 6th, 2024. The guy looks shook because, to him, only a year passed. In his head, he's like he spent hundreds of years in hell, but here only 1 year went by. That's when it hits him. His whole math about time distortion was completely wrong. He remembers that exactly 1 year ago is when his entire nightmare started. That was the day he faced his biggest enemy for the first time. His mind drifts back to that fall, into the hellish demon realm of Rigo. It was a stretch of endless suffering, but in the end he still came out on top. After what felt like forever, he finally made it back to his world. Meanwhile, the redhead starts wondering if he's maybe an S-class awakened, or some secret government weapon, but that wouldn't make sense, or she'd already know. And the young man thinks quietly about someone falling into a different timeline. Out of nowhere, an armored car screeches to a stop right beside the trio. A bunch of agents in bulletproof vests jump out, and more awakened individuals show up on site. Their leader instantly orders everyone to get into combat formation, walking in like someone who solves problems for a living. He greets the two girls, and the redhead immediately recognizes him as leader Kim Jung-woo. He places a hand on her shoulder, apologizes for being late, and tells her to leave the rest to them. Jung-woo asks for details on the threat, but one of his men butts in, wanting attention, and starts telling our MC to step aside. The soldier even accuses him of wearing some fake awakened cosplay, getting annoyed because he's being ignored. The redhead, sensing danger, begs the leader to calm down his reckless teammate. But our hero doesn't care about their drama. He gives the guy a 3-second ultimatum. His eyes glow with this sinister energy, as he asks the man to give him one good reason to let him stay alive. The bulky awakened agent panics, pulls out his dagger, and gets ready to fight. The red-haired girl shouts that the dark-haired man literally killed a level 4 enemy earlier, shocking and rattling her leader. Panicking, the muscular agent thinks he needs to kill the stranger, or he'll be the one getting wrecked. He charges forward, shouting the name of his ability Bladestorm, but he doesn't even get the chance to use it properly. The dark-haired boy stops the entire attack with just one finger on the man's forehead. Then, with ridiculous strength, he slams the guy into the ground so hard everything around them cracks. Looking at the man sprawled on the ground, the protagonist coldly says that the 3 seconds are up. Jung-woo is frozen in disbelief, yelling and demanding what he thinks he's doing to his teammate. But the mysterious man doesn't even acknowledge him. Instead, he says, "Now isn't the time to worry about that." He looks to the sky and warns them that the portal is opening again, and even if all of them teamed up, they wouldn't stand a chance against whatever is coming. The awakened around them panic, horrified by his words. The leader can barely process what he's seeing, shaking with fear. Then a gigantic monster crawls out of the portal, immediately identified as a level 6 enemy. Leader Jung-woo calls headquarters in desperation, reporting that an enemy called Red Horn has appeared. At the command center, the operator reveals that this creature could wipe out over 30 million people in a single day. Realizing the scale of the threat, Jung-woo activates his powers and orders every awakened in Korea to be summoned. The whole group prepares for battle, knowing they need to buy time even if it means dying. A man wearing glasses yells at the blonde girl to escape with the redhead. While the awakened squad charges bravely toward the monster, our MC and the blonde girl stay back, watching. She's confused why the dark-haired boy isn't doing anything, so she asks why he's not helping his own side. He just looks at her with a cold smile and asks why the hell he should care. She insists that this is his world too, and that he clearly has enough power to protect it. He just asks her to give him one good reason he should bother. He continues, saying the weak always get crushed, and the strong survive. That's the rule the powerful must follow. He says people should fight for their own lives if they can, otherwise they'll just be destroyed by someone stronger, which conveniently happens as the monster smashes another awakened fighter. Seeing the brutal scene up close terrifies the blonde girl. Ignoring the battle, he turns to her and asks where the Xian's office is, but the girl just falls on her knees. Then he calls her useless and turns around to leave. Serena snaps at him, calling him crazy. She tries to drag her friend away, but the blonde girl refuses to go. The young woman, Nuri, stands her ground and says this isn't how powerful people behave. She pulls her swords from her portals, declaring that those with power must act. She charges at the monster, shouting that the strong should protect the weak. The boy is surprised she even tries to fight the colossal beast, but her attack barely registers. One of her swords gets knocked out of her hand. The monster opens its massive mouth, ready to swallow her whole. Nuri closes her eyes, a single tear falling as she accepts her fate. Suddenly, a voice commands the monster to lower itself. A moment later, its huge head is smashed violently into the asphalt. The two awakened fighters stare in shock at what just happened. The protagonist is now holding Nuri in his arms, calling her an interesting girl. His clothes look like demon wings as he holds her, and he says he likes her. She instantly blushes hard. Then the boy introduces himself as Taehyung and adds that he'll be her master, the great demon lord. The blonde girl is completely confused by this sudden declaration. She watches him, wondering if he might actually be a real demon. But her thoughts are cut off by the monster roaring and preparing to attack again. Annoyed, the dark-haired boy calls it an insignificant creature. With a terrifying expression, he says it doesn't even deserve to open its mouth in front of him. He throws one precise punch that instantly shuts the beast up with ridiculous strength. The force of the blow shakes everything around them. He looks at the monster and complains that its head is arrogantly higher than his. He forms a sphere of energy above it and demands why it does not bow before him. The sphere drops and crushes the creature's head into the ground. The awakened around them freeze, completely paralyzed by the insane display of power. Taehyung looks at the defeated monster and says, now they're on the same level. He stretches out his hand, extracting a crystal from the corpse. The purple crystal flies toward him, and he grabs it easily. Studying the stone with a faint expression, he comments that this is all it is. Shocked, the squad leader wonders if that might be a magical stone. Then the crystal dissolves into particles of light, while the blonde girl watches, still overwhelmed. She stammers and asks if something happened to him. The demon lord turns to her and orders her to follow him, leaving the girl totally confused. Awkwardly, she asks what he means, but he says he won't repeat himself. He makes it clear she has no choice but to follow, which terrifies her. Right then, Jungwoo shouts that he won't allow it. He thanks Taehyung for the help, but insists that Nuri is one of them and cannot be taken. With an icy stare, the protagonist replies simply, I can. Taehyung says he didn't ask permission from anyone and tells everyone to move aside. Releasing an overwhelming aura, he forces every awakened around him to drop to their knees, writhing in pain. Jungwoo can't comprehend what kind of power he's witnessing. The hero calls them all insects. Irritated by the interference, he decides he should wipe them all out once and for all. But Nuri steps in front of him, begging him not to hurt her comrades. She agrees to follow him as long as he promises not to harm her friends. The demon lord studies her and says she seems fair, but he notices there's something more to her. Suddenly, several system screens appear, showing all her information. He realizes she's a dual class, extremely rare, even in the demon world. Even though her stats are low, he believes he can train her well, declaring that she has been chosen. He extends his hand, and after hesitating, she takes it. The moment he touches her, she screams in pain, but he tells her not to worry. It's just a recording ritual, and it won't harm her. A massive red energy shoots into the sky, creating a huge pillar of light. The remaining awakened watch from afar, staring at the pillar and wondering what the hell just happened. And with that, the duo vanished into the air, and the red-haired girl just kept wondering what had happened. A little later, the scene cuts to this purple-haired dude healing leader Jungwoo's injuries and patching up all the beaten-up awakened people. Meanwhile, Serena is chatting with the rescue team leader, Sungho, who's struggling to process the fact that one awakened guy soloed a bunch of high-level enemies and even snatched Nuri at the same time. The girl tells him she can barely believe it either and drops the guy's name Taehyung. She also mentions he'd been hunting for the Xian's office, which instantly ticks Sungho off. Serena asks if they're planning to chase him, but she warns them it's basically impossible, since no one there could stand a chance against a monster like that. Meanwhile, we cut back to Taehyung and Nuri, walking off together. As they get close to a building, he asks if this is the place, and the nervous blonde girl confirms. In her head, she's debating whether she should try warning her team about her location. She even considers sending her coordinates right then. But Taehyung, reading her like an open book, casually says there's no need to warn anyone, freaking her out. He explains he already knows what she's thinking, and that her red-haired friend will definitely send people soon anyway. He adds that even if those people show up, they just get crushed like ants. Then he turns to her and drops the bomb, that she has zero way to escape anymore, because she belongs to him now. Our MC simply orders her to lead the way, and with no real choice, she agrees. With a shaky sigh, she points forward and quietly leads him. When they reach a door, Taehyung stops to stare at a photo and mentally calls out to his grandmother, saying that after hundreds of years wandering through demonic hells, he has finally made it back. As he looks at the picture longer, he admits to himself that he never forgot her, even after all that time. Then he announces he's going to find her now. But suddenly, Nuri points at something inside the office. In pure shock, the entire place is trashed. Seeing all the destruction, Taehyung instantly gets blinded by rage and yells, demanding to know who did it. Meanwhile, an armored vehicle is speeding toward the site. Inside it, leader Sung-ho reveals he did some digging on someone named Taehyung. The records confirm the office address and the name match perfectly, it's the same guy. Then the red-haired girl casually reveals his full name is Byeontae Taehyung, and she bursts out laughing. Serena can't hold it in either, straight up cracking up at how his name sounds like a built-in joke. The purple-haired healer then explains that according to the data, Taehyung is literally just a normal student, not even awakened. Suddenly, Sung-ho remembers a recent fight between the Daega Guild and the Ilsim Guild. Horrified, he realizes the situation is way worse than he thought. The team leader in the car immediately tells everyone to hurry because something seriously bad is about to go down. Back on Taehyung's side, he angrily demands to know what happened, but Nuri gets nervous. She says she doesn't know everything, but there had been a huge clash between awakened guilds. She goes on to explain that even though people tried to stop the fight, multiple buildings collapsed. Some people didn't get out in time and ended up trapped under the rubble. Taehyung drops to his knees among the debris, thinking of his grandmother. Holding a photograph, he calls out to her with heartbreaking sadness. His mind flashes back to his childhood, him hugging her while she playfully complained about her weight. She worked hard, and the hopeful kid promised they'd have a better home someday. But returning to the present, he breaks down inside, thinking about how excited he was to finally live with her again. The blonde girl watches him from a distance, feeling the full weight of the grief he's radiating. A dark, heavy aura begins rising around him as he demands to know who caused all this. Furious, he questions which unlucky souls dared to hurt the only family he had left. His anger peaks as he asks what kind of monsters could have done something like this. Then he pauses, sensing something. Leader Sung-ho formally introduces himself as part of the White Tiger Intelligence Service. He bows and asks to talk, thinking to himself that with all the energy he feels from the boy, Taehyung must be at least Class A. But Taehyung just says he doesn't feel well and tells everyone to get out of his way. Sung-ho insists, explaining that the people responsible are from the Society of the Awakened, but their identities haven't been revealed yet. Taehyung coldly replies, "That's it," and turns around to leave, leaving Sung-ho confused. Taehyung then announces he's heading straight to the Society of the Awakened. Shocked, Sung-ho wonders if this guy is seriously planning to face them alone, but Serena cuts in, saying maybe he actually can. Realizing how serious the threat is, Sung-ho orders his team to move and stop Taehyung at all costs. The squad members complain, annoyed they have to go restrain some random dude. The guy in the beanie mocks the situation, says if Taehyung is actually awakened, then he shouldn't be a problem, and throws a bunch of stones at him. But the stones instantly break apart, not even scratching Taehyung. The team comments that the target actually seems pretty strong. Then, another awakened member jumps in and attacks with a massive weapon, but it doesn't even tickle Taehyung, who stands there with a blank expression while holding the weapon effortlessly. With one smooth motion, he yeets the guy into the distance. The beanie guy immediately screams at everyone not to attack anymore. Taehyung then uses an invisible barrier to block another attack, and the beanie guy is slammed into the ground by an invisible force as Taehyung orders them all to move aside. Seeing the scene, Serena warns the others that they never stood a chance of stopping someone like him. With the whole team defeated, she says she wasn't exaggerating when she mentioned he could wipe out the entire association. Surrounded by dark aura, the leader wonders how anyone could possibly stop a monster like that. Suddenly, a hand grabs Taehyung's cloak, trying to hold him back. It's the blonde girl, calling him master and begging him not to go through with his plan. Taehyung asks if she really dares, as his servant, to go against his orders. He remembers the recording ritual he performed to imprint his soul onto hers, explaining that because of it she should instinctively obey him and never betray him. But her willpower is stronger than expected. She argues that there are good people in the society, and says they fight non-stop to protect everyone, even if people call them enemies. She says they fight for those they couldn't save, and that she understands his pain. With tears in her eyes, she says it's all too sad, and that her heart hurts too. She begs him to stop, because people out there are doing everything they can to prevent more tragedies. Hearing this, Taehyung calms down and wonders why he even came back to this world. His mind flashes to a memory of his grandmother, saying he didn't need to be the best at school or sports, he just needed to be a good person to help people who needed it. Moved, the demon lord gently pats the blonde girl's head and thanks her. He keeps patting her and explains that because of her, he remembered the true reason he returned. He recalls that the only reason he endured everything was so he could return and live with his grandmother. Looking at the ruins, he laments that it's too late now for the person he loved so much. Then he declares that he'll protect this world exactly the way his grandmother taught him. The blonde girl smiles wide and agrees with everything he said. but he immediately scolds her, reminding her she wouldn't even be alive if he hadn't shown mercy. He then turns to the defeated team and says he won't go after the society anymore, but only under one condition. The team is confused, so the leader asks what condition. Taehyung holds up a glowing object and reveals the terms. They must find his grandmother's killer within 3 days. The scene cuts to this huge, intimidating building, the Regional Intelligence Service HQ. Inside, a fat guy is sprinting through the halls, yelling for team leader Kang like his life depends on it. He finally finds him and starts freaking out, cursing the guy for disappearing on them. The chief keeps chewing him out, saying he should have come back and reported everything already. Sung-ho apologizes, explaining he was busy cleaning up the disaster, but the chief wants answers on how the hell they're supposed to stop a level 6 enemy. Sung-ho says he'll explain later, but has something important to tell him, which instantly makes the chief curious. Then he spots Taehyung and straight up asks if he's awakened. Sung-ho explains he's a newly awakened they just found at the scene. The chief asks if he isn't registered yet, then orders them to test him and register him as soon as possible, leaving Sung-ho and Serena sweating bullets. The Demon Lord overhears everything and, with that smug tone, asks if they seriously want to test him. He cracks a little smile like he's genuinely entertained. Next scene, they're in a packed corridor, shoulder to shoulder with people. Our MC complains about the crazy crowd, but Serena explains most of them are here hoping to get awakened status. He gets impatient and asks if they really expect him to wait. She panics and runs to reception, thinking if he's forced to wait, something terrible might go down. She tells the receptionist they're from the White Tiger team. The staff confirms if this is for the power measurement of Mr. Beyonce Taehyung, but points at the huge line and says tons of people are waiting, and they'll need to wait 1 or 2 hours. Instantly, Taehyung's eyes turn red with anger. The dark aura spills out, and he asks if they seriously dared make him wait behind useless people. A guy in line snaps back and tells him to wait like everyone else, but immediately freezes in terror under our Demon Lord's overwhelming pressure. With total disgust, Taehyung orders everyone to move out of his way. The receptionist goes pale. Our MC says measuring these insignificant beings is a waste of time anyway. While Nuri tries to calm a terrified guy nearby, Taehyung tells them to classify him right now if they've got the guts. People collapse from the pressure, and the chief freaks out, complaining that they sent him for a test, and now this is happening. He groans that awakened individuals are precious, and they can't afford this chaos. The blonde girl, smiling, says they're actually lucky he didn't go further. She says her master was being pretty kind, not hurting anyone seriously. The fat chief wonders what kind of monster this guy is to cause reactions like this. Cut to the testing room. Taehyung walks up to the evaluation sphere. An employee explains that since he's a magic type, he needs to attack the sphere with his strongest ability. Taehyung thinks it's ridiculous to use full power on a dumb magic stone. He decides to use just enough strength and says, "Explode," but nothing happens. He's confused why mana-infused magic isn't working. From the control room, they tell him not to panic and try to relax. That pisses him off even more. He clenches his fist, furious. Then he goes in with brute force, punching the sphere with everything he's got, repeating, "Explode." Suddenly, the sphere detonates in a massive blast of energy. It literally disappears. The operator is shaken, nervously thanking him and saying they'll move to the next tests, but he cuts her off. He says it's pointless because none of their toys can measure his abilities anyway. He's annoyed and says he just wants the results. After some time, the chief demands the results, form the operator girl, and she handed him a tab. The screen shows Class S. Later, the MC and Nuri sit at a cafe. He takes a sip of green tea and complains it's too bitter. Nuri offers her drink and says she can order another. He accepts, takes a sip, and blushes a little because he likes the taste. She asks him what his type is. He says he might be magical type, confusing her. He explains he's only been using strength enchantment this whole time, not his real magic. He suddenly remembers a message saying his magic is restricted outside the demon realm. Nuri gets shocked, realizing magic itself is restricted here. She imagines him like a circus magician, and he immediately scolds her he can read her thoughts. He thinks summoning his castle would destroy the entire building, so that's a no-go. Then the chief calls his name. Taehyung turns and the superior nervously announces the final verdict. He's Class S, the first ever in the country. Nuri is stunned. Taehyung tells the chief not to butter him up and get to the point. The chief stammers, saying he'll explain everything, but Taehyung interrupts again and rejects the offer outright. Panicking, the chief says that joining the media could give him fame and tons of money. Taehyung finds it annoying and says money isn't a problem, he can get it any time. They should just be grateful he's helping even a little. He adds he'll only help if they follow all his conditions. Sung-ho, sweating, realizes he needs to find a criminal fast. On the flip side, that criminal is at home bragging that no one can catch them. A black car drives the MC and Nuri to a safe place. Inside, Sung-ho says he understands and won't reveal Taehyung's ranking. They're setting up a safe location for him and his servant. Watching the car leave, the chief sulks that they can't reveal the country's first Class S. The red-haired girl explains that having a Class S would completely change global power balance. The superior sighs that if people knew about him, they'd feel way safer. The scene jumps straight to our MC and his servant pulling up to this insanely fancy mansion. They walk through a long garden, pass a whole pool, and head toward this massive house. The blonde girl is literally stunned by how huge everything is, but the demon lord is just like, yeah, whatever. This doesn't even come close to his castle, though he admits the place isn't totally awful. 3 days later, the White Tiger team leader shows up at the mansion to visit. As he gets close to the door, he hears weird noises inside and gets confused, wondering if there's a whole fight happening in there. He pushes the door open a bit to peek inside and figure out what is going on. Inside, he sees the training room completely wrecked, with the girl sitting on the floor. The protagonist keeps pushing her, telling her to come at him with everything she's got. She listens, grabs her swords, and charges at her master. The team leader finally realizes they're in the middle of hardcore training. The blonde girl crosses her swords and jumps toward her master, fully ready to strike. She comes down from above, slashing hard, but Taehyung just stands there watching. She slams her swords down on him, but he casually catches them with his bare hands, leaving her totally shocked. Then he yeets her across the room. She skids on her knees like she's about to counter, but lets out a small cry of pain. The young man decides training is over for today. He tells her she may be weak, but she's improving, so she needs to keep training non-stop. Then he thinks to himself that, if she really wants to be his subordinate, she has to reach Class S. Nuri reminds him that today is the deadline he set, which makes Sungho, who's still hiding at the door, super nervous. The girl asks if he's seriously going to kill them, and he says he already gave them enough time. She argues that those people are still precious lives and he shouldn't do that. Her words make him pause, because he hasn't heard anyone say something like that in centuries. He remembers the demon realm where life meant nothing, and survival was the only rule. He reassures her that this won't be meaningless slaughter. This is revenge for his grandmother and a warning so it doesn't happen again. He adds that even if some innocent people die, this action will save many more. She agrees, and he realizes he's gotten soft ever since coming to this world. The team leader suddenly barges in yelling that he can't listen to their conversation anymore. He says he came to deliver something, and the young man complains that he could have just called. Embarrassed, the leader explains that he wanted to hand it over personally. He also notices that the girl looks totally different now and wonders if it's because she's the young man's subordinate. Irritated, the demon lord says he hates wasting time, so the leader apologizes again. He hands over a folder and says the investigation results are inside, just like he promised. The young man opens the file and finds out the culprits are the Ilsim Guild, an old gang that awakened after their leader gained powers. They're still cruel criminals who torment normal people, but the White Tiger team can't touch them because the guild is connected to the association. The demon lord closes the folder and says scumbags like that exist everywhere, and honestly they're lucky. He says the leader can just sit back and let him handle the dirty work. Then he looks at his servant and asks if she gets what needs to happen. The blonde girl looks confused for a second but then realizes what he means. He tells them to wait here because his revenge is finally close. Meanwhile, the Ilsim Guild leader Kim Giltae is celebrating taking over another territory. He mocks the National Intelligence Service, feeling untouchable. Suddenly, a massive explosion from the sky slams into the building. Inside, everything turns chaotic as guards sprint around trying to protect their leader. They rush outside while Giltae angrily demands to know who dared to attack them. The guild members look up at the sky, completely horrified. A flaming message appears, calling them to pay for their sins. They panic instantly, screaming for their leader and pointing at something in the flames. Floating in the sky, the demon lord calmly asks if they're really the Ilsim Guild. He commands them to confess their sins and bow until their bones crack, promising to kill them painlessly only after they do. The guild members are terrified beyond reason. The leader points at the demon lord and shouts that he's the one responsible, and declares that he and his guild will kill him. A member thinks this is his big chance to gain rank and charges forward, yelling insults. The demon lord drops down from the sky, looking at all of them with pure disgust. He lands hard, telling them this is their last chance before he stops showing mercy. The criminals freak out, wondering what kind of monster they're facing. One coward decides to bail and screams that he's done with this madness. But Taehyung asks who said running was an option. He throws a metal beam straight through the guy, killing him instantly. The leader freezes, horrified at how brutally his man was killed. The demon lord says they could have had an easy death, but lacked the guts. Giltae is speechless and terrified by the protagonist's monstrous aura. He immediately ditches his guild and tells them to fight instead. The boy laughs at how pathetic the leader is for abandoning his own people. He thinks this world isn't any better than the demonic one and unleashes a huge blast that shakes everything. The area is shown, wrecked, ground, cracked, walls destroyed. Elsewhere, the safe room activates windows seal, doors lock. The henchman explains the room is built with magical gems, so normal attacks won't work. The leader gets angry, thinking this is punishment for a job gone wrong. His henchman nervously asks how many men are left and admits he already sent everyone away. Suddenly, several guild members gather outside, hyping themselves up, saying they can take down a Class A. They spot the intruder and one panics, shouting that the guy is way too strong. They realize he's a high-level awakened and charge him together. The demon lord grins, loving the challenge, and tells them to come at him all at once. He runs into them and wipes them out effortlessly, while they scream in panic for help. Inside the safe room, the leader and his henchmen listen in absolute fear. The leader goes quiet, thinking hard about something. Outside, the boy triggers an explosion and casually asks if that helped at all. He walks through the destruction toward their hiding spot. With a cold expression, he says rats always end up in the walls. The henchman is stunned, unable to believe one person beat so many awakened alone. He crawls to the glass window and bangs on it desperately, screaming that he doesn't want to die, but the barrier doesn't move. The demon lord grabs him by the neck and asks why he's scared of dying when he happily killed innocent people. Then he crushes the man's head and ends him instantly. The guild leader trembles, calling the boy a monster. The demon lord replies coldly that he only came for total extermination of the guild. He asks the leader for one good reason, not to kill him right now. The man lies and claims everything was self-defense, but Taehyung knows the truth. He calls out the lie, saying they were the ones who attacked without giving any chance. The leader is stunned, he knows, and starts thinking the boy must be joking. Then he tries to hype himself up, saying he's the guild leader and will kill the protagonist even if it costs him an arm. He charges and throws a punch at Taehyung's face, but nothing happens. The leader gets furious when he realizes it didn't even leave a mark. With glowing eyes, Taehyung says he'll give him 1 full minute to keep trying. The leader loses it and yells that he can't take this anymore. He throws punch after punch, but every hit is blocked by an invisible barrier. The boy watches him like he's watching paint dry, thinking there's no way he could lose to trash like this. Then he remembers his grandma, his whole reason for coming back here. The leader screams that this next punch will hurt, but before he can even land it, his arm is suddenly cut clean off. The demon lord stands still while the man howls in agony, yelling that the minute isn't over yet. Taehyung looks down at him and says he changed his mind. He tells the man he'll finish him now, and he'll make sure he feels every kind of pain possible. The leader begs for help, asking why the protagonist even cares about their deaths. He promises anything, desperate to survive, but everyone he could turn to is already dead at the boy's hands. With pure horror in his eyes, he realizes there's literally no one left to save him. He keeps begging for help until the moment he dies. Sometime later, the whole guild building got wrapped in police tape. The chief looked around the mess and basically said the boy really didn't hold back at all. He sounded stressed, saying that even though this situation was already bad, there was another problem coming. He explained that the Awakened Association wasn't just gonna chill and ignore this. One of the members pointed out that this wasn't just a murder, this was straight up a massacre, and he questioned how they could pretend this level of violence didn't matter. Inside a meeting room, people were already arguing about how to punish an S-class Awakened. Someone said they couldn't allow vigilante justice to start trending in the country, but the meeting leader ignored all that and switched topics, saying there was a bigger issue, the sudden spike in portals. He said there'd been a huge increase lately, 12 portals just this week, and strong monsters popping out, and the worst part was that no hunter had taken them down yet. Luckily, they had an S-class on their side, and he trusted the boy to handle it, but he also said the kid couldn't just do whatever he wanted. Right at that moment, the chief panicked when the leader demanded that the boy apologize for what happened. The guy with glasses immediately realized the leader was serious and apologized. The leader calmed down a bit and said he understood everyone's frustration with this whole unprecedented situation. He explained that they were dealing with an uncontrollable force, and now the fate of the entire country was basically in their hands. Meanwhile, the protagonist was just taking a shower. Through the mirror, he saw his servant finishing her chores. The blonde decided she needed to wash her master's clothes next, but when she opened his wardrobe, she was instantly stunned. Everything inside was the exact same outfit. She complained that the agency clearly had zero common sense. Grabbing a change of clothes, she went to her master, but then screamed in shock. Taehyung was drying his hair with a towel, and he asked why she was yelling. Completely red, she demanded to know why he walked out of the bathroom like that. Stammering, she handed him the clothes and begged for permission to leave quickly. She ran out, and he just thought about how reckless his subordinate was. Later, the two sat together in the garden, enjoying the day. Nuri watched him quietly, thinking he'd been silent for days and seemed empty after his revenge. She wondered what she could do to make him feel a bit happier. Then suddenly she got an idea and turned toward him with an excited face. She smiled, moved closer, and suggested they go shopping together. He looked surprised and repeated her suggestion in his mind. She said they needed new clothes anyway, and he actually seemed into the idea. Nori got super cheerful hearing his response. She said she'd get ready, but he told her there was a problem. Worried, she panicked and imagined something bad, but he simply said he was totally out of money. Nuri offered to lend him hers, but he declined immediately. Then he summoned a purple crystal and said that Alor doesn't borrow money. Holding the gem, he explained that selling it would give them more than enough cash. A while later, they arrived at a tall building in the city center. The girl explained it was the National Intelligence Services trading market, where not just agents but awakened individuals also did business. As they walked in, a cheerful attendant greeted them and asked what they wanted to sell. She said she needed to see the item first to assess it, but when she saw the purple crystal, she froze in shock. Nervously, she asked them to wait while she made a call. She called Mr. Park, telling him someone wanted to sell a rare gem, and excitedly said the size was abnormal. Minutes later, the man sat with them in his office, introduced himself as Park Sunho from the sales division, and welcomed them. He wondered why an intelligence service agent was here with this random guy. Then the protagonist casually dropped the massive crystal onto the table. Park Sunho was stunned and couldn't believe the size. asking about its level. The protagonist asked for their offer, while the man just kept staring. Sunho apologized and said buying something that huge would require a national-level budget. Annoyed, the young man took the crystal back with a disgusted look. Then he used his power to break the huge gem into smaller pieces. The sales guy was shocked while the boy asked if that was enough. Park wondered how anyone could break magical stones, and said even this small piece was worth billions. He said he could buy it, but needed time to gather the money. The hero looked disappointed and said the biggest trading market in the whole country didn't even have enough cash. Nuri stepped in and asked if they could at least pay some portion up front. The man said this was an unprecedented situation, and the girl reminded him they'd profit massively from the stones anyway. Then she made an offer. If he paid 1 billion right now, they'd accept. The protagonist stared at her, thinking how she dared to negotiate like that. Under pressure, Park accepted and thought the boy in front of him was a wild beast. Shortly after, the 1 billion transfer went through, landing in Taehyung's account. With the payment confirmed, Nuri smiled and said now they could go shopping. Walking down the street, she suggested checking out the master's clothes first, excited at how good of a deal she got. Meanwhile, at the office, Mr. Park was furious, ranting about how those worms dared to pull that on him. He couldn't believe they took advantage of someone who considered himself elite. Fuming, he grabbed his phone and swore he'd show them the true power of money. He called someone and said he had scoundrels he wanted taken care of. Far away, the protagonist and his subordinate happily enjoyed their shopping trip, when suddenly the sky turned purple and lightning flashed everywhere. A sinister purple aura surged through the city sky, catching everyone's attention. The girl stayed excited, admiring the fancy clothing stores. She pointed at one and asked her master to go with her, but he told her to pick something first because he didn't need anything. She instantly refused, saying today was all about fixing his wardrobe. She grabbed his arm and dragged him inside, insisting that he'd dress well today. He just watched her quietly, a bit surprised by her boldness. He thought that the more he observed her, the more impressive she seemed. He looked at her hand holding his fingers and continued thinking that the more he paid attention, the more peculiar she was. They arrived at a fancy clothing store called Mori. At the entrance, a nicely dressed employee bowed and asked if they were looking for something specific. Nuri pointed at the clothes excitedly and told him to dress her boss head to toe in the best stuff they had. The protagonist groaned about how boring this was. Meanwhile, that sinister portal kept expanding and pulsing purple energy across the city. Soon, the store employees returned, saying they were done. The girl was struck speechless, completely amazed by her master's new look. Wearing the new outfit, the protagonist said he wasn't used to clothes like that. Feeling awkward, he asked her what she thought. Flushed and stuttering, she said he looked really, really handsome, swearing she meant it and that he looked amazing. She said she couldn't wait to tell everyone that he was her master. He adjusted his collar, still uncomfortable, and said they could go. She asked if he didn't want to check the mirror, but he said he didn't need to. Her opinion mattered more. Then he told her it was time to buy her things. Blushing hard, she thought he liked the outfit, and that she got exactly what she wanted. He urged her to hurry, and she agreed excitedly. After a while of shopping, the two stopped at a cafe to rest and grab drinks. Holding all the shopping bags with a big smile, the girl looked completely satisfied with how everything turned out. Suddenly, the young woman's eyes go wide because she spots something super weird in the city sky. She looks up, totally startled by whatever just popped up above them. The duo freezes, staring at this massive purple portal that literally spawned out of nowhere over the entire city. Everyone on the street stops dead in their tracks, all staring at this freaky-looking thing. The blonde asks what it is, and her boss confirms that, yep, a gate just opened. But the young man points out that this is a type of portal he's never seen before. Inside that portal, a creepy red creature slowly starts to crawl out. A giant, terrifying eye peers down at the city from inside the dimensional rift. The girl starts panicking, saying that a gate violation happening without warning is seriously bad news. Her face turns pale as she realizes this portal is completely unknown. She explains that portals like this usually bring disasters or insanely strong enemies. She even remembers some horrifying creature from one of those unknown portals. She looks down right as the protagonist begins to speak. Meanwhile, everyone on the street is still staring at the sky in full panic mode. Then the young man says that this creature is going to be stronger than anyone he's ever fought. The red monster keeps slowly crawling out of that purple portal in the middle of the city. Freaking out, the girl calls someone and warns them that they're in deep trouble. She tries to explain that an unknown gate is about to fully open. At that moment, the creature's arms push through the portal, scaring the life out of the crowd watching. But the protagonist just stares at the monster with this bold, challenging look, and basically tells it to come at him. Finally, the head of a red demon with razor-sharp teeth appears in the sky. Its horrifying roar echoes as it fully materializes in front of everyone. The moment the monster appears, buildings start collapsing, and chaos erupts everywhere. Nuri screams into the phone that the gate is open and the whole situation is out of control. People sprint through the streets, yelling at each other to move. In the chaos, a mother loses her little daughter, leaving the child alone and terrified. The person on the phone asks the blonde what she said about evacuating civilians. They ask if she's listening, but the girl is too shocked to respond. She finally says her master will evacuate everyone and tries to reassure them that everything's gonna be okay while they wait for reinforcements. But the demon lord just smiles with this dark, excited expression. His partner looks at him in fear and calls out to him. His eyes glow red as he gives a sinister, hyped-up smile. The young man recognizes the creature and says it's an arrogant and insane dragon beast. He remembers a fight in the demon realm where he literally ripped one of their throats out. Looking at the portal, he thinks that finally, someone worthy has shown up. A magic circle appears around him, and he celebrates the chance to fight all out against a strong enemy. Panicking, the girl screams her master's name, trying to snap him out of it. That plea hits him, and he pauses, turning toward her. With tears in her eyes, she begs him to help her evacuate the civilians. He looks at the blonde again, shocked by the desperation in her voice. Meanwhile, the little girl is still lost and crying alone in the ruined street. The protagonist looks down and notices ants walking near his feet. His mind drifts back to when he once said the world was too weak while opening a door. With the doorknob turning to ashes, he said nothing here could handle his power. Then, remembering his partner, he also said not even the monsters here were worthy. He looked at the blonde in front of him, but when he tried to touch her, she shattered like glass as he said not even people could withstand his power. He kept thinking about how fragile this world was. To him, it was like a sand castle full of ants. Back in the present, people run around in chaos while he just stands there unfazed. With glowing red eyes, he admits that everyone's weakness annoys him. He remembers the demon world, where the only rule was the strong devour the weak. For him, pitying the weak was a luxury, and protecting them was straight up foolish. But this tiny world messed with that natural law, and it irritated him deeply. He grows tired of restraining himself, and decides he's done living uncomfortably. After all, this is the first real opponent he's had in years. Floating upward, surrounded by dark aura, he shouts that now no one can stop him. Desperate, the girl cries out for her master again, forcing him back to reality. With a devastated look, she begs him to help her. Tears run down her face as she clasps her hands, pleading for him to save the innocent people. Up in the sky, the red monster roars again, blasting destructive energy. Debris from a department store starts falling. She looks up, wondering if she can destroy all of it. The blonde leaps into the air with her blades, spinning as she cuts through some of the falling debris to protect the crowd. But she panics because she can't stop all the pieces alone, as some debris is about to crush a mother and her child. She screams, then an invisible barrier appears and blocks the impact. Nori watches in shock. The protagonist just used his magic to protect the two. Then he explodes the rest of the falling rocks before they can hit the civilians. His subordinate stares at him, stunned, while he finally smiles calmly and tells her to evacuate everyone. He floats in the air surrounded by a powerful aura while she watches from below. He reflects on how he almost ignored his own subordinate. Surrounded by flames, he declares he won't be an incompetent lord. The girl thanks him and runs off to guide the civilians out. She blushes and feels genuinely happy as she does what he ordered. With her blades ready, she yells for everyone to follow her and leave immediately. She points the way while the boy thinks he's doing all this because of her. He figures helping for a few seconds won't kill him. But standing alone in the ruined street, he says there's a catch. He glares at the creature in the sky, saying he hates that thing hovering above his head. Then, dark, shadowy wings burst out of his back. With an intense red glow, the wings unfurl completely, and he rises into the air. He shoots upward, ready to face the threat head-on. Looking at the monster inside the portal, he notes that the creature seems stuck. The giant eye stares at him with pure rage. With a grin, he tells the monster he'll help pull it out. Then he grabs the dragon's snout and punches it with insane strength, yeeting the monster straight into space. People and his partner just stare at the sky in shock. Our hero says that up there, they can fight without interruptions. With a flash of colors, he shoots upward, smiling as he goes. Everyone watches a beam of light launch into outer space. In an instant, they're both in space, floating above Earth. The red dragon looks around, frantically for its opponent. The boy appears right in front of it, asking if the beast is awake now and saying no one will disturb them this time. With his glowing eye, he notes that this seems like a really ancient dragon. He hopes the dragon won't embarrass him. Then a floating screen pops up with info about the creature Kuro's. It says the beast got lost and broke the rules because of some contract. He wonders if the dragon gave up on itself and violated its contract. Suddenly, the creature opens its mouth and forms a blue energy sphere. It shoots an energy beam, and the young man immediately knows this is bad. Floating in space, he realizes the human world is right behind him. If that attack hits Earth, it'll be a massacre. He says he can block it easily, but then, coming out here to fight would have been pointless, so he chooses to tank the attack head-on. The beam hits him directly, but an invisible barrier protects him. The dragon stops, thinking it got him, but the boy is just standing there in space, totally unharmed. The protagonist stares at the dragon and complains that he just bought those clothes. The creature gets furious and charges another, even bigger energy blast, but the boy just smiles confidently and dashes at the beast at high speed. He lands a massive punch on the dragon's side, then another right on its head. The red beast screams in pain for the first time, realizing how strong its opponent is. Looking at his flaming fist, the boy comments that after so long, that actually felt good. He's happy to finally hit something that doesn't break from a light tap. The creature roars and tries to bite him again. The boy touches the dragon's skin, almost like he's analyzing its texture. The beast activates a magical shield to defend itself from the boy's attacks. The protagonist studies it with a serious, analytical look. The monster roars again, showing its sharp fangs. The demon lord kicks the barrier with full force, but nothing happens. He realizes this dragon can use magic. The creature made a barrier that won't fully block attacks but is enough to drag the fight out. He admits he still hasn't mastered this world's magic enough to break it normally, but with a grin, he says there's nothing brute strength can't solve. He finds long fights boring, so he decides to use a special item. He opens a purple portal and pulls something out. His eyes shine as he reveals his weapon, the dragon blade, Ascalon. Holding the legendary sword, he asks if the monster recognizes it. He explains that the blade was forged from the spine of the demon dragon Zigma. The monster snorts at the mention of the sword's origin. The boy says this weapon is the worst thing the dragon could face. The creature breathes blue fire toward him, and he asks if it wants to test the blade. With a single slash, he cuts the beam clean in half. Holding the sword, he smiles and says its power is insane. The creature charges again to try and eat him, but the boy is faster and dodges. He points the blade directly at the dragon's chest and pierces it with a precise strike, sending the beast flying back. Smiling, he warns the dragon that now it won't be able to use any more magic tricks. Staying in his attack stance, he watches the sword embedded in the beast's chest. He says it's his turn now, and throws a powerful right hook that blasts the dragon far away. Meanwhile, in a nearby space station, two workers watch as the dragon suddenly flies past their window, leaving them horrified. The creature grabs onto the station's structure with all its strength, smiling. Taehyung admits the dragon is pretty skilled. He asks what trick the beast will try next, while purple flames swirl around him. The boy recognizes level 6 explosion magic flare. He asks if the dragon really thinks it can hit him with that. The dragon attacks, but he says the beast is totally wrong. He reveals that the monster can't hurt him because his magic resistance is maxed out. The creature is shocked, and the boy asks if that's all it's got. If so, he says it's time for a full brute force fight. No more tricks. With a wicked smile, he prepares the final blow. Then both of them launch their final attacks. On Earth, chaos still hung in the air, as a red-haired girl and her partner worked frantically to pull civilians out from piles of collapsed rubble. Not far from them, the tiny blonde girl held up an entire slab of concrete, almost her whole body shaking under it, but she still managed to shield a cluster of terrified people hiding beneath it. A young man wearing a vest knelt nearby, glowing hands pressed against an injured civilian as he used his powers to heal. Meanwhile, a man in glasses stood at the center of everything, scanning the destruction with a sharp, commanding expression. Suddenly, a system alert popped up. The portal's reaction was shrinking, meaning the gate would close soon. A few seconds later, another confirmation appeared. The gate situation had been resolved. With a heavy exhale of relief, the bespectacled squad leader turned toward his team, asking what exactly happened inside. He asked the little blonde girl specifically where her master and the enemy had gone. She simply pointed toward the sky. The leader blinked, completely unable to process her answer. He even lifted his hand to his forehead, staring upward as if expecting the answer to fall out of the clouds. Then another hunter, Chun Woman B-class and clearly full of himself, stepped up, scoffing loudly. He mocked the blonde girl, asking if she expected them to believe that the enemy just disappeared into the sky. She insisted she was telling the truth, but Woman kept snickering like she was making it up. The bespectacled leader tried to calm him, reminding everyone that they were all still in shock, but Chun Woman wasn't having it. He snapped that he wasn't here to clean up their mess. Right then, a deep, authoritative voice cut through the argument. The White Tiger leader appeared, his presence instantly crushing the mood. He scolded Chun Woman sharply, warning that he would file an official complaint if Woman opened his mouth again. Woman glared back with bitter resentment, mumbling something about whether the White Tiger thought all awakened people had the same kind of power. Before anyone could say another word, Nuri suddenly looked up again. Her eyes widened, and then everyone else looked up too. Fear spread instantly. Meteors were falling. Fiery orbs came streaking down toward the city, and people started screaming. Someone yelled for everyone to run and take cover. But before the meteors hit, one of them suddenly sprouted wings, paused midair, then crashed into the ground with explosive force. The blast sent shockwaves ripping across the area, throwing agents and civilians like ragdolls. Dust and flame flooded the street. The blonde girl shielded her face. For a second, she was shocked, but then her expression softened into relief, and a small smile spread across her lips. Because in the middle of the flames, completely unharmed, our hero walked out like he just took the most casual landing of his life. The blonde immediately screamed for him, beaming with joy. Suho dusted off his clothes and joked that maybe next time he should descend a little more slowly, since her shouting had basically given him a headache. The association hunter stood frozen, staring at Suho like he'd just seen a creature from another dimension. He demanded to know what that thing was supposed to be. The blonde girl sprinted to her master, while another man anxiously asked where the enemy went, staring at Suho like he wasn't sure whether to fear him or worship him. The squad leader quickly stepped forward, officially praising Suho's performance and saying he did a good job, but they needed to talk. He summoned one of his summons, a magical being named Uriel, and ordered it not to allow a single sound to escape the area. A shimmering blue energy barrier instantly formed around them, isolating the space like a sealed dome. Suho immediately noticed the creature wasn't human. It was something straight out of a fantasy realm. The leader explained that things had gotten complicated because everyone now knew about Suho. Thanks to the fight, the world was about to learn that a Korean awakened had defeated a level 7 enemy, a monster classification that practically no one survived. He kept talking about political pressure and consequences, but Suho cut him off, annoyed. He told the man flatly to stop wasting time and get to the point. So, the leader finally admitted it. They might have to reveal Suho's existence publicly. The blonde girl's eyes widened nervously as she stared at her master, unsure what this meant for him. Outside the barrier, people were already taking pictures, pointing at Suho, talking loudly about what they'd seen. Suho thought to himself that, in a world full of ants, something like this was bound to happen eventually. The leader looked frustrated mostly because this guy was impossible to negotiate with. But then, out of nowhere, Suho simply nodded. He agreed. With his arms crossed, he told the leader to reveal anything the government wanted. The leader blinked, stunned, asking if Suho was absolutely sure. Suho deadpan said not to make him repeat himself. He just had one warning. He didn't want any trouble. Then he casually raised his hand. A massive pink pillar of energy burst upward, streaking straight into the sky with a thunderous hum. The two association men stared at him, speechless. Suho smirked, eyes shining, and said that was enough. Seconds later, a colossal purple monocrystal materialized in midair above them, glowing like a divine object. This was his compensation for everything. And everyone watching, from agents to civilians to hunters, could only stand there, trembling and stunned, wondering what kind of monster, no, what kind of legend they were looking at. Far away in another country, a guy is literally yelling for someone named Mr. Anderson. Anderson, this calm blonde dude, is busy reading a report like it's the most important thing ever. A soldier runs up, totally out of breath, and tells him the whole operation just got cancelled. Anderson asks why, and the soldier explains that a level 7 enemy somehow got clapped. He keeps scrolling on his tablet with the wildest expression, then drops the real bomb. The person who took down the beast was Korea's new Class S awakened. Chun Wooman is straight up stunned, trying to figure out what kind of monster of a guy that must be. He says the hero literally fell from the sky with the monster's head and pulled a monostone out of it. Then the narration jumps in, saying humans only react 2 ways when they see something their brain refuses to process. Either they accept it, or they deny the hell out of it. The association hunter chooses denial like a champ, smirking and shouting that none of this is real. He claims they almost fooled him and says everything is just special effects. A blue-haired agent tries to calm him down, but the guy refuses to chill. The squad leader admits it's unbelievable, but insists it's 100% real. He says the person in front of them is officially the nation's new Class S awakened. The hunter still looks at the young man like it's a joke. Furious, he shoves the agent and screams that calling the kid Class S is absolute nonsense. He accuses the intelligence service of manufacturing a fake awakened just to scare guilds. He rants that nobody would believe some story about a monster dying in the sky anyway. That's when the blonde girl snaps and yells that her master isn't a fraud. She says without him, Seoul would have been wiped off the map, and that the man should honestly be thanking him. But the rude hunter points at her and yells at her for butting in. He turns to the protagonist and starts ranting about how the agency clearly doesn't teach their servants any respect. The hero responds calmly, saying the man's shouting is basically the equivalent of a mosquito bite to him. His subordinate stares at him, surprised at how protective he suddenly is. Then he unleashes his aura, eyes glowing red, and asks how the guy even dares to insult his servant. He says he's not generous enough to let this slide. The hunter starts trembling, and the young man warns him clearly never badmouth him or his subordinates again, or he'll face the most painful ending he can imagine. The hunter instantly shrinks, overwhelmed by the presence of what feels like a demon lord. He collapses to the ground crying, while the young man walks away bored, telling his servant to come along. She quickly obeys, still stunned, and follows him. The blue-haired agent just watches everything silently while the terrified man cries on the floor. The suited agent rubs his head, unable to imagine how all this is going to turn out. Then, an official announcement drops, declaring Taehyung Ba-yeontae as Korea's first Class S awakened. At a press conference, someone announces that he handled the gate incident. Back at the office, the agent says the public announcement is out. The protagonist smirks, saying ironically this whole mess won't cause any problems. Nori explains that her master is now one of the 9 Class S awakeners in the entire world. She says that no organization in the country would dare challenge him now. The squad leader, checking his tablet, says that was actually their main worry. He explains that without high-level heroes, Korea was basically at the mercy of other nations. Japan and the US tried to interfere, but the protagonist handled everything solo. However, the agent warns that other countries won't just sit still, they'll definitely try to eliminate him. so he suggests building as many alliances as possible. He says the Wolf Team awakened unit from the USA asked to visit him. The young man says he doesn't care, surprising the agent with how casually he brushes off such a big opportunity. The MC crushes his can and says even the strongest in the world mean nothing to him. He complains that his rare day off is now completely ruined and tells the agent not to bother him with such irrelevant stuff again. Nuri starts worrying, trying to figure out how she'll convince her master to say yes. Then she suddenly gets an idea, remembering a moment when her master showed interest in something very specific. She interrupts the agent and asks about the Wolf Team, then mentions that Anderson, the world's strongest awakened, is part of the squad. The suited man confirms, shocked, saying Anderson himself is coming. He adds that Anderson specifically requested to meet their hero. That finally gets the protagonist's attention. With a slight smile, he finds the situation interesting for the first time. The blonde smiles too, knowing her master only gets excited when a strong opponent is involved. Right then, the protagonist changes his mind and says he'll meet the mysterious man. At a landing strip, a private jet rolls in, carrying someone actually worth the hero's time. Two suited men step out, and one casually comments on how extra the whole welcome setup looks. The other man tells him not to get hyped, and definitely not to cause chaos this time. Anderson agrees, saying they're here to visit an ally and they better behave, but also reminds them that everyone already knows the Pentagon didn't send them for fun. Their team has clear objectives on this mission, so he wants them to stay focused for now. The buff guy cracks his knuckles, agreeing right away. With the Wolf Team gathered, the blonde leader thinks that once the timing is right, they'll act however they want anyway. Inside the plane, one of the agents tells his partner again that they're not here to play around, and that the Pentagon gave them two missions. The first, recruit the new Class S Awakened. He pauses, turns serious, and explains the second part, testing how strong Korea's new hero really is. He tells the warlord he'll handle everything else while the blonde should focus on the mission. But Anderson has one lingering thought, something about what happens if their offer gets rejected. He says in that case, he'd straight up crush the protagonist. Meanwhile, the hero is chilling with his drink, zero stress on his face. He's annoyed that the guests are late and that he's already bored. Then he notices a TV special on his phone, a report about Hunter Ryan Anderson. The segment says he's the strongest guy in the world and has defeated enemies using his sword, Excalibur. Finally, the hero looks interested, thinking the man is one of the best fighters alive. Right then, his blonde servant rushes in with an important message. The Wolf Team has arrived. The hero breaks into an excited grin, then shifts into a darker, more intrigued smile as he stands up and prepares to go. His servant happily leads him out, calling Anderson her old idol before quickly correcting herself. Her master is the real number one. The hero wonders if this world even has body modification tech yet. He remembers the surgery he had in the demon realm, which changed him so much he's no longer a pure human. He recalls the powerful opponents he faced there, none of them fully human. As his servant guides him to the door, he pats her head, thinking about just how strong she really is. On the other side, the Wolf Team waits, and Anderson watches the hero approach. The protagonist walks toward the two men near a huge window, calm and collected. Their eyes lock, both glowing with interest, and the hero wonders how strong a pure human can actually be. A suited agent steps forward and greets him, introducing himself as John Homan, director of the National Intelligence Service. The hero doesn't react. He just stares at the outstretched hand, ignoring the handshake completely and leaving the director awkwardly hanging. The American team watches this with mixed disgust and curiosity. Nuri tries to apologize for her master, but the director says he understands the hero clearly has his eyes on someone else. He introduces the Wolf Team, and one member steps forward as Jensen, a Class A Awakened. Nuri is surprised to hear him speak perfect Korean, but she still worries about how her master might respond. The hero studies Jensen silently, and the American assumes the kid is disrespecting them. He comments that the hero must have been pretty strong to take down the dragon earlier. Another American agent gets irritated by the hero's cold attitude and calls him a stuck-up brat. He shoves Jensen aside, grabs the hero's hand, and forces a handshake, mocking Korea's manners. He squeezes hard and asks if basic courtesy doesn't exist here. Nuri panics instantly, seeing where this is heading. Brad, the arrogant agent, thinks he'll crush this fake Class S himself, but his smug smile fades in seconds. Confusion hits him hard. Nuri lowers her head, already bracing for impact. During the handshake, the hero casually starts crushing Brad's hand. Brad panics as the pain kicks in. To break free, he activates his ability, Explosion. The blonde servant yells for the director as things escalate, and Jensen screams at Brad, calling him an idiot for starting a fight. The hero stays icy calm and tells Brad to disappear. Instantly, Brad's fireball ability dissolves into nothing. Shocked, he has no idea what just happened. The hero pulls back to deliver a clean, devastating punch, but it lands on empty air. Brad gets teleported away through a blue portal, just as someone declares that things stop there. Anderson steps forward with his glowing sword, protecting his teammate. He apologizes for Brad, but also points out that the hero's reaction wasn't exactly peaceful either. The blonde leader suggests they leave it at that, and the hero agrees. Brad collapses to the ground holding his mangled hand. The protagonist and Anderson stare each other down, tension thick enough to cut. Jensen drags Brad away as ordered. The director quietly panics, already imagining the international disaster this will cause, while Nuri gets hyped, loving the adrenaline of the clash. She offers to take the agents to a healer, and they thank her as she leads them out, leaving the hero alone with Anderson. Anderson apologizes again, saying his teammate is stubborn but probably learned something today. The hero replies that he doesn't waste time on weaklings, and tells the blonde to get to the point. Anderson finds it funny how easily the hero calls a Class A awakened weak, but admits the kid is right, that single blocked punch already did massive damage. The blonde realizes that if they ever became enemies, this hero would be a nightmare. Finally, he makes his offer. He asks if the protagonist wants to join them in the United States. The hero instantly refuses. The director freaks out since the US is essentially trying to steal Korea's Class S. Anderson is surprised, but the hero repeats that his answer won't change. Then the hero provokes him, saying that deep down they both know what the American truly wants. He releases his aura, saying they're both curious, and suggests they fight right here. With a confident smile, the warlord accepts the hero's challenge. Meanwhile, in another room, a healer was patching up Brad's busted hand while the American agent stayed furious, blaming Jensen for putting him through this humiliation. Jensen didn't bother entertaining the tantrum and reminded him that everything happened because of his own attitude. Brad fired back, yelling that the Korean hero had disrespected the strongest team in the world. Nuri watched the argument unfold, confused about how Jensen remained this calm. Jensen just shrugged it off, saying there was no problem here at all, because their opponent was a Class S, one of the strongest beings that existed, and someone like that earned the right to be arrogant. He told Brad plainly that their team's strength came from Anderson, not him, and that Brad was only around because of his one specialty skill. Brad clenched his teeth, admitting he knew that, but said he refused to accept it. He jumped up and shouted that he'd never see that Korean hunter as his equal, insisting it made no sense for a Class S to appear in such a small country. When Jensen asked him to stop, Brad yelled that if the team had another Class S, they wouldn't be suffering this humiliation. At that point, Nuri finally cut in, telling him he was lucky things ended the way they did. Both agents stared at her, confused, until she calmly stated that if her master truly wanted to, he would have already handled both of them. They were stunned at her confidence, but Brad burst into loud mocking laughter, stepping toward her and asking what a kid like her could possibly know. She ignored him completely, and said she knew one thing, how strong her master really was. She declared with full certainty that the Korean hero was the strongest human alive. Brad only laughed harder, amused that she even called him master, and grinned as he claimed her little fantasy was about to break. He said that right at this moment, Anderson was crushing her master's pride, and would destroy the Class S once and for all. Back in the fight, Anderson prepared to strike with Excalibur, pointing the blade at his opponent. The director, watching everything from a control room filled with monitors, tried to understand how they'd ended up here. He wondered if this duel had been staged intentionally to test American firepower, and reminded himself that this was still a fight between two Class S hunters. All he could do was hope the building held together by the time it ended. Anderson paused for a moment with a confused look, asking the hero if he didn't need a weapon. The protagonist replied that fighting bare-handed against someone like him would be stupid. His system analyzed Anderson's abilities, showing level 3 celestial swordsmanship, and he suggested they should both use swords. Thinking about his own level 8 swordsmanship, he considered which blade to choose. Suddenly, a full arsenal of magical swords materialized behind him. He remembered a special blade the Demon King had gifted him as a symbol of loyalty, and purple energy gathered around him as he made his choice. Anderson was shocked to see him open a portal using a magic system. The hero picked an imposing blade, the Blade of Thunder, and said it was worthy of his opponent. Anderson smiled, thanking him for the compliment toward Excalibur, and admitted he'd assumed the hero was just a fighter, not someone with sword talent. The protagonist casually said he was actually a mage, but would use only swordsmanship in this fight. Anderson took that as pure arrogance and charged in, shouting that the hero would regret everything. Excalibur unleashed a massive wave of energy, tearing apart everything in front of it, but the hero dodged with ease. In the control room, the director panicked at the sheer destruction from a single swing. He thought this kind of power could instantly defeat a level 7 enemy, but the hero floated above the chaos unharmed, even complimenting Anderson's attack. Anderson froze in disbelief, realizing the young man avoided everything so effortlessly that even the debris didn't touch him. Furious, he charged again with rapid attacks, but the hero seemed to enjoy the pressure and praised his determination. Then he prepared his own blade, and decided it was time to raise the level. Anderson felt a deadly energy approaching him just before the protagonist lunged forward, leaving a red streak behind and slamming him hard into the ground. The impact left Anderson severely injured, the situation looking grim. The hero observed him, and thought that someone known as humanity's strongest couldn't just give up here. He hoped Anderson would stand and continue. On the ground, Anderson was stunned by his opponent's strength, and remembered his past fight with the Bone Collector, a massive level 5 monster, with bones tough enough to make the entire battle a bloodbath. That fight had made him a Class S, and earned him Excalibur. Back in the present, Anderson claimed his blade was indestructible, and as its wielder, he couldn't break either. He picked up the sword, and prepared himself again. The protagonist smiled, pleased, as Anderson acknowledged his power and declared he would now fight with killing intent. The hero responded that he was looking forward to it. In the control room, the director panicked and yelled for them to stop, but Anderson activated his power. Explosion. He dashed in again at high speed, but the hero only smiled, thinking he needed even more power, and asked Anderson to show everything he had. The director's panic grew, saying this no longer looked like a duel, and if either of them got seriously hurt, it would instantly become an international incident. The others agreed, but the man with glasses explained that only a Class S could stop a Class S. The director slumped down, praying things wouldn't end in disaster. Celine said she trusted the Korean hero, thinking he wouldn't destroy the place. But right then, a massive explosion erupted near the control room, and she felt embarrassed at how wrong she might have been. Another officer commented that the hero had protected Korea so far, so her assumption wasn't unreasonable. She said her real concern was the American leader. On the battlefield, Anderson suddenly looked terrified. The protagonist formed a red arc of light with his blade, and the destruction made the director fear the entire building could collapse. The hero wanted to see Anderson's full strength, but knew the structure couldn't survive it. Anderson screamed that he was humanity's strongest and no one surpassed him, insisting the hero wasn't an exception. He charged with the intent to stab him, but the protagonist realized the weaker people in the building were in danger and instantly appeared behind Anderson. Startled, Anderson swung his sword, but the hero calmly caught it with one hand, saying this place wasn't suited for their fight. The tension between them rose even further, as Anderson sensed a terrifying aura that sent fear through him. He suddenly realized he was in real danger. The hero's red energy surged, and Anderson questioned whether he had truly felt fear from that attack. He refused to accept it, screaming that it was impossible. He launched a powerful wind attack, but the hero stopped it effortlessly with his purple energy. Anderson, shocked, couldn't understand what happened. Then his hand was suddenly pulled into a small black hole, making him scream. The hero said arrogance was something only the strongest had the right to wield, calling Anderson a weak man who pretended to be the world's protector when he couldn't even protect himself. Then he slammed him into the concrete floor with brutal force. Everyone in the control room watched in horror. The hero stood over Anderson's defeated body and revealed the move's name, Backsmash. Far from the fight, the tremors were felt on the street, and civilians stared at the building fearfully. In another spot, a suited man and a blonde girl felt the vibration and tensed up. Brad grinned, claiming the real battle had finally begun. He mocked Nuri, telling her to say goodbye because her master was being beaten down by Anderson and probably begging for his life. The girl snapped, furious at hearing insults aimed at her master. The suited man was shocked by her energy, while Jensen watched with interest, thinking she seemed strong but only at Class B level. The suited man yelled, asking if she wanted to fight, and Jensen found the idea amusing. The girl said yes confidently, believing she had every right to be dominant in the situation. She remembered her master's advice to always be strong, never underestimate opponents, and never back down. In the present, she summoned a huge sword and warned the man he would regret this. The suited agent grew angry, refusing to believe someone like her could actually attack him. But panic hit him quickly, and he screamed for help as others fled the room. Jensen told him to stop panicking and stay calm. The suited agent agreed nervously, but the girl didn't hesitate and charged from behind. Just as she was about to strike, a blue aura flared and stopped her blade. She screamed as the force blocked her attack. Jensen asked if she was really that mad, then offered to apologize on Brad's behalf, and asked her to stop. But she grew even angrier, saying Brad had insulted her master and didn't even think to apologize. She pointed her blade at him and said he needed to be punished. Brad froze for a second, then suddenly grew excited, saying if she wanted to start the fight, he'd finish it. He unleashed his blue energy and prepared to battle her as she charged forward to strike. Returning to the ruined arena, the hero appeared again, this time carrying the unconscious American leader over his shoulder. He set the blonde down on the floor with little effort and told the chief not to panic, explaining that he hadn't killed him, though medical attention would definitely be necessary. Relief washed through the director and everyone around him, grateful that Anderson was still alive. One of the officers muttered in disbelief that Taehyung had actually defeated the strongest awakened in the world. With growing excitement, he said that with the hero's strength, their country could rise above every other nation, even surpassing the U.S. and China. But the protagonist cut that ambition down instantly. His expression turned cold as he warned the director not to even imagine using him for political ambitions. He made it clear he fought Anderson out of curiosity, not nationalism. With that, he told them all not to bother him again and walked away, leaving the stunned group behind. Out in the hallway, his mind shifted as soon as he saw the aftermath of the other fight. The ceiling was lined with massive, razor-sharp ice spikes, and across the room, Nuri was panting heavily, still pushing herself against Brad, who continued mocking her sword. Jensen watched from the side, realizing that despite her appearance, Nuri wasn't a typical fighter at all. Brad created a ring of ice around him and shouted that he'd freeze her into a cube. Jagged ice shards fired toward her as she charged in, but the suited man barked a command that seized her movement. Ice began crawling across her body, locking her in place. She tried to resist, sword shaking in her grip, but pain took over as Brad's magic slowly immobilized her. Laughing, he taunted her, asking how it felt to be frozen, and who was punishing whom now. Inside her mind, Nuri apologized to her master for failing him and admitted she had no way to defeat Brad on her own. Seeing her struggle, Jensen told Brad to stop before they got themselves into deeper trouble. But before anything else could happen, the entire ice circle shattered, broken by a hand that appeared from nowhere. A moment later, Brad's jaw was clamped in that same hand, The hero stood there, gripping the man's face with chilling intensity. Both Nuri and Jensen froze in shock at how suddenly he had appeared. In the reflection of his glowing red eyes, the hero saw Nuri's face, bruised and trembling. Brad screamed for help and cursed the protagonist, but the hero didn't even flinch. His grip tightened, and with one brutal motion, he spun the man's body and slammed him into the ground with devastating force. His red aura erupted down the hallway like a storm, radiating unfiltered fury. The hero demanded to know how Brad dared to lay a hand on something that belonged to him. He turned to Jensen with the same deadly glare, asking if he was involved. Jensen could only stare, stunned that the man standing in front of him was supposed to have been defeated by Anderson moments ago. The hero repeated, even angrier, that they had touched what was his, and promised they would pay with their lives. The threat left Jensen pale, but before the hero could follow through, Nuri stepped in front of Jensen, saying she was fine, and urging her master not to continue. Her determination cut through his rage for a moment. Seeing her conscious, his fury slowly eased. She collapsed into his arms, still trapped under layers of ice. Tears welled up as she tried to explain herself, but he stopped her gently, saying that was enough. He reassured her that she had done well, and now it was his turn to take care of her. A warm golden light flowed from his hand as he healed her wounds, shocking her with how quickly the pain disappeared. Turning back to the two officers, he warned that Nuri had just saved their lives. Holding her in his arms, he demanded they leave the country before he changed his mind. Alone in the hallway afterward, Jensen realized the truth: they had just lost the title of strongest to a devil. Sometime later, Team Wolf returned home, and the reason behind their retreat became a mystery. Rumors said they had met with the Korean hero, and Kim Un-sok, an bespectacled, sharp-minded man, felt irritated he hadn't been the first to speak with the young powerhouse. He lay lazily on a sofa, thinking deeply and plotting his next move. With a quiet smile, he decided he couldn't just pretend nothing had happened. Somewhere else, hidden in darkness, a mysterious woman said they needed to find him, setting the next threads of fate into motion. In another location, a red-haired woman finally said it was time for the hero to move again. She looked a little irritated as a movie played in the background, and Nuri laughed while the protagonist complained that things were getting boring. The blonde asked why they had just moved, and yet Celine already wanted them to move again. The woman forced a nervous laugh, clearly unsure of how to explain herself. Outside, a crowd of reporters and photographers had already gathered, waiting for any kind of news. The redhead explained that the hero's presence there had leaked to the public. Since he didn't want to be disturbed, she suggested a private island for him instead. She excitedly promised him a new house, and practically begged him to take a look. The hero thought about it from the couch, considering the offer. Nuri got instantly excited at the idea, and her enthusiasm genuinely caught him off guard. She shyly admitted she'd always dreamed of living on an island, and when he asked if that actually interested her, she realized she'd said too much and apologized. The redhead panicked, thinking she had offended him and wouldn't make it out alive, but the young man accepted the idea, shocking her completely. He stood up and told them to prepare for the move. Moments later, the trio arrived at a paradise-like island with a massive mansion resting above the sand. They stood on the beach, taking in what would now be their new home. Nuri was mesmerized, saying the island was unbelievably beautiful. The red-haired woman explained that they had purchased the entire place and built an exclusive resort-style mansion just for him. Everything here was his. The hero looked around and admitted the place wasn't bad at all. Relieved, the woman said they were glad he liked it and mentioned she had something else to share. She handed him a letter from the U.S., explaining it was a cooperation request. The American government apologized and proposed a defense alliance, saying that if a powerful enemy ever appeared, both countries could support one another. They also offered to handle all expenses if he accepted missions for them. The final decision, however, was entirely his. The protagonist didn't particularly care about the U.S., though Nuri still looked annoyed about the topic. He thought to himself that someone like Anderson would make an interesting opponent again. With a small grin, he said the idea sounded fun and accepted the alliance. Celine looked confused at first, but he confirmed his decision, and she relaxed with gratitude. She then suggested creating a new awakened team with him as the leader. While the two discussed it, Nuri listened in disbelief. The hero realized that having a team would push his apprentice to grow faster, so he agreed, but insisted he would choose his own members. The redhead brightened up immediately and told them a boat was ready to take them onto the island. Nuri said it felt like her dream was coming true, and the hero admitted that he was excited as well. She complained that they could have at least built a bridge to walk across, but he simply said it wasn't necessary. She didn't understand what he meant until, in one smooth motion, he lifted her into his arms and jumped straight toward the island. Celine stared in shock as the two vanished into the sky, not knowing how to process what she had just seen. High above the water, the hero carried his apprentice with ease until they reached their new home. Meanwhile on the island, a suited manager rushed around, telling the staff to prepare because their guests would arrive any minute. He suddenly heard a strange sound overhead, and looked up completely confused just as the hero descended from the sky with Nuri in his arms. The employees froze in disbelief. Nuri thanked her master with wide-eyed admiration, thrilled he brought her there by flying. Seeing their stunned faces, the hero casually asked if they arrived too early. The manager scrambled to regain his composure, and said they had actually been waiting. He introduced himself as Go Chang-suk, and promised exceptional service. The hero's slight smile made it clear he approved. Inside the mansion, Nuri was immediately amazed. The place looked like a luxury hotel. The hero found it decent, though he was clearly expecting to see more. Curious, he challenged the manager to show him exactly what the estate could offer. The staff introduced their chef and team, assuring him he would be well taken care of. Soon after, the duo enjoyed an extravagant banquet, and even played some video games together. Nuri went out to the beach to play ball with one of the staff members, while the hero relaxed on a lounge chair. When the butler asked if everything was satisfactory, the young man checked his phone and admitted that life here wasn't bad at all. A new message notification appeared on the screen, and he smirked, thinking things were about to get interesting. Suddenly, a helicopter approached the island and landed on the lawn. The hero and Nuri looked up as a suited man stepped out, greeting them like an old acquaintance. He thanked the hero for accepting the alliance, and Nuri bowed politely. He then introduced someone who had come with him. A woman stepped out, Lee Eugene, the newest Class A awakened. She looked at the hero, trying to figure out if he was really the man behind all the rumors. Watching him casually sip a drink, she wondered if this laid-back guy was truly the infamous Class S. She was clearly unimpressed, and silently called him a bum, questioning why that girl was always beside him. Nuri snapped at her for not greeting properly, but Eugene dismissed her, saying children shouldn't interrupt adults. That comment instantly irritated Nuri, who shouted that she wasn't a child. Eugene muttered that she wanted to meet a real awakened, not this trash. Growing impatient, the hero told the two of them to leave if they were only here to waste his time. The suited man apologized quickly, explaining she was new and ignorant. The hero actually found that amusing. He looked straight at Eugene and said that being a Class A awakened gave her some room to be arrogant, but if she was powerful, she should at least be able to recognize the difference between her strength and her opponent's. With a cold, threatening aura, he added that if an ant tries to attack a human, it gets crushed. Eugene went pale under the pressure, stunned by a force she had never experienced. The hero looked at her with pure disdain before saying he'd let it slide for now. She backed away, breathless, realizing she had narrowly survived a test she didn't know she was taking. The man apologized again, but the hero waved it off, saying he was actually intrigued. Then he ordered Eugene to follow him, surprising her completely. He also called Nuri, who asked if she needed to come too. Outside, the hero told the two that he wanted to see what they were capable of. Nuri drew her weapons, complaining that she hated being treated like a child, and insisted she was strong enough to fight beside him. The redhead smiled and told her to be careful. The hero said they were going to fight with everything they had to see who was the strongest. Eugene released a red aura, accepting the challenge with full force. She activated her power, an ability that let her copy and wield other powers. Seeing that, the hero smiled, thinking both would actually show their best. The red-haired awakened prepared her own ability, saying she would use her transformation powers. Nuri stared wide-eyed as a demonic shape began rising from a swirl of dark smoke. Even the redhead's colleague whispered that he'd never seen her use this form before. Then the woman completed her transformation, taking the form of a red draconic monster. The hero analyzed her calmly, recognizing her metamorphosis ability and noting her stats weren't extraordinary, but still, he admitted the results exceeded his expectations. He had never imagined she could transform into something of that level. Completely stunned, Nuri struggled to form words. As she stared at the creature's horns, a memory flashed back the red-horned monster from the university portal. She recognized it instantly. The hero smiled, amused that an old enemy had basically returned to haunt them. He turned to Nuri, swords in hand, and asked what her next move would be. The transformed adversary mocked Nuri, asking why she looked frozen in fear, and whether she was scared of the creature that traumatized her. But Nuri tightened her grip on her sword and said she wasn't afraid at all. With a determined expression, she said she was actually grateful for the chance. She filled herself with blue energy, declaring she would finally avenge the people who died back then. The creature was caught off guard by her sudden resolve. Nuri launched herself forward without hesitation, her sword glowing intensely. Their clash was so powerful that the entire island began to tremble. Inside the mansion, the staff stared at the ceiling in fear as the whole building shook. One employee asked if the structure would survive this kind of impact. The butler, unfazed, assured him the building was reinforced and said they'd better get used to it because this kind of thing was probably going to become routine around here. In the middle of the battle, Eugene was stunned by how strong and fast her supposedly small opponent really was. Trying to regain control, she created an energy sphere in her hand, boasting that she could stop the incoming attack. Channeling Emmy's power, she fired a large red blast straight at Nuri, but the blonde reacted quickly, dodging the attack with sharp precision and keeping her focus locked on the fight. Using the momentum from her evasive leap, Nuri spun in the air and swung both swords toward her opponent. The creature slipped past the attack and countered with a spinning kick, slamming the blonde straight into the ground. Before Nuri could even catch her breath, the transformed redhead shot toward her at full speed, and the two began exchanging rapid blows, their fight erupting into a storm of sparks and flashing lights. Eugene gathered more red energy into her palm, shaping another sphere. She fired it instantly, blasting the apprentice upward and drawing a scream of pain from her as she was thrown into the air. The creature warned Nuri to be more careful next time, already charging another attack. Without hesitation, she launched an even stronger sphere toward the injured blonde. Watching from afar, Sung-ho was amazed she had used the same skill as before, but its power had increased dramatically. A massive wave of red energy surged upward, threatening to swallow Nuri whole. The explosion that followed shook the sky and sent a cloud of dust rolling through the air. The suited man stared in shock, but the hero looked like he was enjoying the spectacle. Breathing hard, Eugene scoffed that this is what happens to those who underestimate a Class A awakened. But then she paused, confused by what she saw through the dust. Instead of falling, Nuri was completely unharmed and used the creature's own head as a springboard. With a swift movement, the apprentice angled her sword and readied a finishing strike. The two locked eyes, intensity burning between them as the blade drew closer to its target. Observing the moment, the hero noticed something, and a slight smile appeared on his face. Then, with a firm command, he declared the clash over. Nuri's sword stopped just inches from Eugene's neck, the redhead frozen in place. With the fight officially ended, the hero stepped in and said the training was enough. The apprentice obeyed immediately, lowering her blades, while the transformed woman collapsed to the ground. Returning to her human form, Eugene silently reflected on what happened. Despite her superior stats, she'd still been defeated. The hero approached his apprentice and gently held her chin, giving her an approving look. Eugene admitted that the real deciding factor wasn't power, it was the overwhelming difference in experience. Watching the hero, she thought she could grow stronger under him, catching his attention. But before she could even ask, he refused outright. Shock washed over her. He patted Nuri's head and said Eugene was like a baby taking her first steps, and he had no interest in training her. The disappointment was obvious until he added that she would make a good opponent, and if she wanted, he'd give her a chance to fight him someday. The girl was stunned, barely able to process the offer. The hero then turned toward Sung-ho and asked if he hadn't sensed the danger yet. The suited man blinked, confused, asking what he was supposed to have felt. Before anyone could react, Sung-ho's phone rang. He answered it immediately, his expression darkening as he listened. On the other end, a panicked voice warned him. The city of Osaka had been destroyed. High above the clouds, several planes sliced through the sky at high speed as they rushed toward the disaster zone, and inside one of the private jets, our hero sat with his companions in a tense silence that clashed with the hum of the engines. Nuri leaned forward and asked her master if it wouldn't be faster for him to just fly there alone, and he shot back with a deadpan question asking whether she ran everywhere instead of using a car whenever she went out. Across from them, Eugene kept glancing around and wondered how he could stay so calm when all of them were literally flying toward a life-threatening situation. But before she could say anything, the man in the suit stood up with a tablet in hand and announced he would explain the situation properly. He told them an unknown gate had appeared in the center of Osaka just an hour ago, then projected a hologram showing the city being torn apart as he revealed the horrifying truth that the entire area had been annihilated. Eugene stared at the footage in disbelief as the man added that all communication with the local elite forces had been completely cut off. The explanation continued as he described the enemy that emerged from the portal, stating that the monster was classified as level 8, which made Eugene freeze in terror at the sheer danger implied by that number. Nuri looked at her colleague with concern and asked if she was okay, assuming the girl was getting sick from the flight, but the girl instead asked if Nuri wasn't afraid of battling the strongest enemy reported so far. Nuri gave a small smile and admitted it was scary, but said it would be worth it because they were going there to save people. And with a confident look, she told Eugene she didn't have to worry about anything. She pointed toward their master and said they had him on their side, which meant they weren't going into this fight helpless. Meanwhile, the dark-haired man lowered his gaze with quiet thought, realizing the monster they were about to face was even stronger than the dragon he had fought before. Meanwhile in the city, the giant spider-like creature watches the chaos unfold. The monster then feeds on one of its victims in the middle of the ruined streets. Back inside the plane, the pilot reports that they are 5 minutes away from their destination. When they arrive in the area, everyone is warned to get ready to descend and fight. With a determined expression, the MC stands up and says he will head out before everyone else. He walks to the plane door and jumps straight into danger without hesitation. He drops in free fall as the wind rushes through his hair and wings. Nuri warns that she will jump too, and asks Eugene if her parachute is ready. Eugene replies that it isn't, and her colleague scolds her since this was something taught at the academy. Nuri then helps Eugene fasten her seatbelt properly for the jump. Eugene thinks about how nervous she feels and questions whether she will be useful in the battle, but her colleague says she is simply used to it and that Eugene will be fine because she is strong. Hearing this, Eugene looks surprised at the young apprentice. She thanks her with flushed cheeks and a small smile. At that moment, Nuri makes a smug expression and says that obviously she is the strongest one there. The two then stand at the plane door, and Eugene announces that they will jump together. Eugene shuts her eyes and begins sweating nervously as the countdown starts. But at 3, Nuri casually pushes her colleague out of the plane without mercy. Eugene screams in panic as she plummets toward the ground in free fall. They both fall together, and Eugene screams while the strong wind messes up her long red hair. Near the ground, the MC has already opened his wings and is watching the destruction in the city. With a look of contempt, he seems unbothered by the shouting from his companions. He examines the giant spider monster in front of him. The MC floats and opens his portal, pulling something out. Drawing his sword, he prepares to strike and says he will offer a proper greeting. He then releases a massive energy blast toward the creature. On the ground, a Japanese awakened, named Koharu, is terrified by the monster in front of her. She stands face to face with it, calling it a monster. Closing her eyes, she accepts her fate and waits for the end. But the MC's energy blast approaches from above the spider. In pure shock, Koharu can barely process what she is seeing. The blast detonates on top of the creature, saving her and filling the area with dust. In the air, Nuri tells Eugene that they will land using the power of their boots. Nuri then pulls out her 2 swords from her portals, ready for action. She lands in front of the Japanese awakened and shields her with her crossed blades. She protects the purple-haired woman from the blast aimed at the spider. Then Nuri turns and asks the girl on the ground if she is okay. The young woman introduces herself and explains they are the reinforcements sent from Korea. The spider creature, however, looks completely unharmed. The MC feels confused because his attack didn't cause the damage he expected. He examines the monster and remarks that it's definitely a very ugly anomaly. He admits with a smile that he has never seen anything like it. At that moment, the status window appears, showing the name and divine attributes of the creature. It also reveals that the monster became lost because of a mysterious contract. With a confident smirk, the MC seems unfazed by the situation. Floating in the air, he asks if the creature is an exiled god. Then he reveals that he himself is also an exiled god like his opponent. Holding his weapon, the dark-haired man gets ready to test the creature's strength. With an excited grin, he charges forward, saying he will see how strong it is. He dives at high speed toward the monstrous opponent. He faces the creature's many red eyes with complete confidence. With his weapon, the MC strikes with a powerful blow, slicing through the air. The attack triggers an explosion that spreads a huge cloud of dust across the city. As the impact reaches them, one of the women shouts to be careful while Koharu watches the scene in shock. Nuri quickly grabs her and pulls her away from the blast. The 2 Koreans stare seriously at the battlefield while Koharu remains stunned. With a trembling voice, the purple-haired woman asks what that was. Meanwhile, the giant spider is being attacked from every direction in front of them. Nuri tells the shocked Japanese girl that the winged man fighting is her master. Koharu, confused, asks if that awakened one isn't an enemy. The young apprentice smiles and asks if her master isn't amazing, leaving Koharu speechless. Nuri then tells her not to worry about the spider because her master will handle everything alone. But when Nuri offers her hand, Koharu tells her to stay away. Standing up, Koharu snaps that Nuri is no better than a Class C from Miss. She shouts that she doesn't need help and demands Nuri get out of her way. At that moment, Eugene, now transformed, calls her disrespectful to the people who just saved her. The creature keeps provoking and says she is no better than Nuri, but Eugene comments that they shouldn't be talking right now. The 2 girls suddenly tense up as they sense something approaching. The giant spider creature was still completely intact despite the multiple attacks from the MC. A window displays the monster's name, Young Atlak Nachai, and it lets out a loud roar. The women then move into position facing the enemy with clear tension. Nuri agrees and says she would love to teach the girl a lesson right there. However, at that moment, they needed to focus on surviving. The spider creature roars again as it prepares to attack. The MC dives from the sky at high speed toward the creature. At the same moment, the giant spider shoots a huge sticky web from its mouth to trap him. The MC gets caught in midair and becomes completely wrapped in the web thrown by the enemy. With his entire body trapped, he still seems unaffected by the situation. The giant creature then yanks the web downward with force, pulling the MC toward the ground. The impact creates a massive explosion, kicking up dust everywhere. Inside the smoke, the MC frees himself and curses the monster, calling it an irritating bastard. He grabs his sword but realizes it can't deal any damage to the enemy. The protagonist then admits that at this rate, he will never win. The spider creature roars proudly, as though celebrating its overwhelming advantage. But with his eyes glowing red, the MC smiles and says he has already made his choice. A red aura surrounds him, as he declares he will show what he is truly made of. The MC announces that for the first time in this world, he will appear in his real form. He then transforms into a demonic being, with horns, and faces the anomaly in front of him. A powerful wind bursts out before the multi-eyed creature. Both Nuri and the transformed Eugene look shocked by what they are seeing. Grabbing one of the monster's legs, the demon lord challenges it, saying that if the spider truly is a god, it should fight him and survive. The anomaly swings its sharp claws, attempting to land a fatal blow on the protagonist. The MC then reveals his red demonic wings and prepares to counterattack. He pushes off the ground with such force that the asphalt breaks beneath him, and he strikes the creature's chin violently, sending it flying backward. The creature crashes onto the ground, flipped upside down. It looks up and shoots webs toward the protagonist again, but the MC moves faster and dodges them while flying toward his opponent. With a smile, he says he will test whether the monster can endure his powerful punches. He then unleashes a rapid series of blows that land directly on the creature's body. When he sees the punches have no effect, he studies the spider for a moment. He then admits, with a grin, that the creature's durability is truly incredible, but he questions whether its many eyes can withstand his attack. With determination, he lands a powerful punch right onto one of the spider god's eyes, releasing energy from the strike. The creature lets out a sharp, deafening scream. The women, overwhelmed by the sound, cover their ears. Floating in the air, the protagonist watches the result of his full power. Seizing the creature's moment of weakness, he dives down toward it. In that dive, the demon lord tears off one of the spider's legs. Holding the leg in his hand, he smirks and says that everyone has a weakness. He adds that the monster survived his punches, but now he wants to see if it can handle this. The protagonist then brings the leg down onto the enemy like a vampire stake. He appears satisfied with the result of the strike, but then purple smoke starts pouring out of the spider. More of the smoke spreads as the creature lets out another sharp scream. The MC shields his face with his arm, startled by the strange smoke. The purple smoke begins wrapping around his body, and it clearly affects him. Irritated, he realizes this isn't normal poison and could become a serious problem. He identifies it as annihilating poison. Seeing the danger, Nori decides to join the fight to help her master. She jumps straight toward the poisonous monster without hesitation, aiming to strike it with her weapon. The Japanese awakened girl thinks that even if they can't defeat the enemy, they must not let the world find out they were saved by a weaker country. She uses the moment to activate the processing team. Nuri then lands a powerful hit on the poisonous creature mid-air. Suddenly, the MC shouts at his subordinate to get away as fast as she can right now. She mourns for her red-haired partner, who looks confused. Meanwhile, the spider keeps releasing deadly poison everywhere. The transformed Eugene is shocked and asks if that was really poison. She complains that Nuri should have mentioned that earlier, while they both flee. The Japanese girl panics, confused because she did nothing. Nuri grabs her and runs, taking her along. Carrying the Japanese girl on her shoulder, Nuri warns that if she wants to stay alive, she needs to get out immediately. With a serious expression, the MC also orders his apprentice to leave right away. He says the poison could melt her skin and must be poison of the gods, but the hero stays confident and prepares to show his true power. He pulls out his hand engulfed in fire from inside his portal. Surrounded by flames, he asks if the creature's poison can withstand a dragon's breath. The flames swirl into a massive fire tornado that rushes toward the enemy. Faced with the attack, the giant anomaly recoils in fear of the young man's power. The MC mocks the creature for calling itself a god while still being afraid of fire. He flies toward it, calling it disappointing as he prepares his next strike. The MC fires an enormous blast of golden flames at the creature, but the spider doesn't stay still and gathers its purple energy to retaliate. As the hero's flames approach, young Atlak readies its counterattack. The spider god shoots its purple beam, piercing through the golden flames and flying straight toward the demon lord. The purple energy cuts through the fire and pierces the MC's body in midair. He spits out liquid as Nuri screams in horror at the brutal sight. Eugene screams the name of her master, who is being pierced by the attack. The MC comments that the monster used spiritualized poison to try killing him. He states that it is poison of the gods, and only a few can survive it. But smiling, he says he's a terrible opponent for a poisonous creature. He declares the poison useless against him, as his chest begins to glow bright. Grabbing the poison spikes without fear, he pulls them out. The MC reveals he has hydro blood and can nullify any poison with his power. The spider is completely shocked that its attack failed. The winged man prepares a devastating counterattack. He charges full speed toward the anomaly to finish the battle once and for all. He hits the monster with an attack that causes a massive explosion of light. Nuri smiles proudly, while the transformed Eugene is stunned by her master's power. Facing the defeated creature, the MC announces that it is time to end everything. In his demonic form, he prepares the finishing blow. With demonic agility, he tears off all the spider's legs. The Japanese girl watches in disbelief, unable to process the scene. The creature screams in agony as it writhes under the MC's assault. The giant anomaly finally collapses headfirst onto the asphalt, completely defeated. The MC surveys the result calmly and with satisfaction. He tosses the monster's legs aside, then lands on its head and walks between its eyes. Holding an energy sphere, he comments that the fight was fun, but tells the creature to die as he unleashes the energy into its skull. The spider explodes completely, ending the fight. Suddenly, a pink magical stone emerges from the remains. The MC picks it up curiously. He finds it strange because gems are power cores created by strong demons. He says it wouldn't be surprising if one came from a weak dragon, but concludes the creature must have been a fallen god, since a perfect being wouldn't create something like this. The MC deduces that the creature's condition came from a contract with someone extremely powerful, and he knows this cannot be taken lightly. Meanwhile, his subordinate is staring seriously at something. Nuri and Eugene have been surrounded by awakened Japanese. The pink-haired girl explains that Japan's reputation will suffer if people find out a weak country helped them. Smiling sinisterly, she says that is why Nuri and Eugene need to die right now. Eugene gets angry, remembering how they acted completely different when they were being attacked. Nuri asks if they really plan to betray them after saving their lives. Koharu smiles and says it isn't betrayal, because they were never on the same side. Nuri becomes outraged, saying they came to protect them, and now they want to kill her. The antagonist screams that she is an awakened from Japan, and is just protecting her reputation. She says they should not have interfered, and now they must disappear. They aim their purple light spears at the two heroines. The pink-haired woman says that without an S-class awakened, they can handle both of them. But suddenly, the MC appears, landing hard in front of the duo. The impact throws debris at the Japanese team. They are shocked, shielding their faces. The antagonist freezes, confused about what just appeared. The MC calmly asks what is going on. He says he will settle this quickly, because their behavior has deeply offended him. The Japanese girl becomes irritated, thinking that if the MC had delayed a bit longer, they would have won. Eugene explains the situation clearly. They saved those people's lives, and now that they feel embarrassed, they want to erase them. With glowing eyes, the MC asks how they dare harm his people, and commands them to stop. The Japanese team is suddenly forced to the ground by an invisible force. They struggle, wondering what kind of power this is. One man feels an invisible hand crushing him against the ground. Another says, an S-class is too much for them, but the pink-haired girl tells him to shut up. She warns that reinforcements are on the way, and even the hero can't beat all of them. She claims Japan's best awakened will arrive soon. She orders her team to stall for time. The MC says he was going to overlook this, out of respect for their dignity, but they pushed him too far. A dark aura surrounds him as he threatens to erase them from existence, so no one will ever know they were there. Nuri quickly runs to her master, stopping in front of him to restrain him. She begs him not to go that far because it's unnecessary. The apprentice tells the Japanese girl that even after being betrayed, her desire to save people hasn't changed. She proposes a one-on-one agreement to settle everything right now. Nuri explains that if they win, the Japanese will leave, but if they lose, they will stay silent about all of it. She insists she will handle the fight alone, without her master's help. If he joins in, too many people will be hurt. Eugene questions why they should care so much about the Japanese. With pleading eyes, Nuri asks her master to allow the duel. The MC finds her courage interesting and agrees to let her fight alone. He promises, in the name of the Demon King, that he will not interfere in the outcome. The pink-haired woman becomes irritated, but her companion says this is actually a chance for them. The young man explains that they can use the duel to stall for time and tells her to trust him. Then the swordsman steps forward, saying he will not be intimidated by the awakened Korean standing there. The Japanese warrior faces Nuri as everyone else watches the start of the fight. The MC smiles and tells his apprentice to show the results of her training. Nuri moves into her attack stance, preparing for the duel to begin. She charges forward so quickly that she appears like a blur to the spectators. Without giving her opponent any time to react, she unleashes multiple sword strikes and then stops behind him. Both fighters keep serious expressions, and the opponent initially appears unharmed. But suddenly, the warrior starts coughing as he finally feels the impact of Nuri's rapid attacks. Eugene watches with a satisfied smile at how the fight turned out. With the enemy collapsing onto the ground, Nuri announces with a serious expression that she has won the duel. The pink-haired woman is stunned, unable to believe the girl actually won. Smiling, the MC tells the Japanese girl that now they are finally even. He says it is good to see how much Nuri has improved and that he will now fulfill his promise. Then he warns the enemy to leave while she still values her life before he changes his mind. The Japanese girl becomes furious and screams how Korean awakeners dare insult them like that. With her team behind her, she vows that after this humiliation, they will never let the Koreans leave alive. She orders all her men to kill them without hesitation. Seeing this, Eugene becomes irritated and complains about the Japanese team's behavior. The MC places his hand on Nuri's head and tells her that she has done enough for today. She looks up at him as he gently pats her head, clearly worried about the situation. A red aura surrounds him as he says he doesn't even want to use his sword against that scum. Suddenly, dark red energy forms a massive tornado around him. The Japanese team and their leader are horrified by the power in front of them. The enormous whirlwind of energy surges forward and drags every member of the enemy team into it. The dark energy completely engulfs them as they are trapped in the violent tornado. All the power condenses into a single red sphere in the MC's hand. He absorbs the sphere, closes his fist, and looks around calmly. He surveys the destruction he caused and remarks that everything is clean now. The MC says there is nothing left to see and tells his team they can go home. Nuri calls out to her mentor, while Eugene watches from a distance. She thinks about how the MC managed to do all of this entirely on his own without any help. As he walks away, she feels relieved that she is on the same side as him. On TV, a news report shows the aftermath of the Level 8 enemy attack in Osaka. The broadcast states that many Japanese awakeners disappeared during the fight. During a press conference, the Japanese government thanks South Korea for their assistance in the battle. Back on the MC's private island, a butler approaches the group and asks for their attention. The gentleman hands over a box and says it is a message from Mr. Cote, sent directly from Japan. They place the box on the table in front of them and watch as it is opened. Inside, the group finds a shining and powerful spear. The orange-haired girl and Nuri stare at the gift in amazement. Nuri says it's an incredible item, but the MC comments that it isn't bad, though there is a catch. He touches the weapon and says it's useless for him except as a very powerful refrigerator. The MC suggests they send food instead of giving him a useless item, and the butler agrees. Suddenly, the MC becomes serious and looks to the side with a different expression. He warns that something is approaching the island, leaving the older man confused. Soon after, a boat appears on the horizon and speeds toward the island. On the boat, a man in sunglasses is amazed that someone actually lives on an island. He says the owner must be a Class S awakened, and claims he risked his life to come find him. He and his two bodyguards arrive on the island while the butler apologizes for their sudden visit. The gentleman explains that the visitors are from the Aries Guild, and their leader requested to meet the MC. He says he refused the visit because the MC was on vacation, but now he will escort them away. The MC tells him it won't be necessary to expel them, confusing the butler. He thinks the visitor must be insane for coming unarmed to someone much stronger. The MC smiles, intrigued by the situation, and Nuri watches him. The MC then decides to greet his unexpected guests. The guild visitors are stunned and wonder if this is the castle of a demon. Their leader senses that the MC isn't a normal Class S and becomes extremely afraid. Dark aura surrounding him. The MC asks if the man is the representative who came seeking him. With a sinister smile, he invites the man to state the reason for his visit. They all sit in the living room to begin the conversation. At that moment, the white-haired butler serves a cold chocolate drink to the MC. The man drinks it while thinking that a Class S with a demonic aura actually likes cold chocolate. The MC tells him to speak directly because he hates wasting time on nonsense. The guild leader chokes on his drink, even more terrified by the pressure the MC exudes. He stands and bows to the ground, begging him to accept the invitation. But the MC rejects the request instantly without hesitation. The story then shifts to the Awakened Association. A man researches on his tablet and wonders where this Aries Guild even came from. His assistant explains it is a Class C guild, and the official scoffs at the information. The assistant insists his boss should pay close attention to this new guild. He says it matters because a certain person is involved with them. The official is shocked and asks if that crazy Class S is really associated with them. With a serious expression, he tells the assistant to explain more. The young man says the leader of Aries has been pursuing the Awakened for a long time. His boss says they try to monitor the hero but can't see everything he does. The assistant then reports that the guild went to the West Coast, and the boss is shocked, confirming they went to an island and had a scheduled meeting. The official becomes stressed, asking why they would approach such a dangerous madman. He orders his subordinate to find out what was discussed in that meeting. He thinks he is monitoring the hero, but doesn't understand why the MC got involved with them. He reflects that if contact is made, the situation will change drastically for everyone. Worried, he concludes that they have no choice but to act. The official picks up the phone and calls a man named Mr. Chen. With a serious expression, he says he has business to handle. He mentions the offer he previously declined, and says he will reconsider if the man accepts the job. On the other end, the man becomes interested and asks for more details. Back on the island, the man with glasses is still kneeling and begging the MC. He desperately asks why the MC refuses to join his guild. With a cold expression, the MC replies that the answer is simple: he is useless to him. The hero adds that his worth is equal to a stone he crushes under his foot. He says that despite being worthless, the man dared to risk his life coming onto his territory. The MC tells him to leave, because he hates wasting time on things without value. But the guild leader refuses, and says he can't return home empty-handed. He says he felt from the start that he needed this awakened one in his guild. He explains that without the MC, his guild has no future. He shouts that it isn't true that he's useless. He argues that even if they are worthless to the MC, they still fought to the death, and they could at least work as support or control. Nuri watches quietly. He even offers that they could work as cleaners for the place. The guild leader begs for a chance, saying he will do anything. The MC smiles and asks if the man really means anything. Interested, the MC says the proposal is quite interesting. The MC finally agrees to give the guild leader a chance, shocking him. He asks if the man is sure he will do anything, and the visitor confirms instantly. The MC smiles and says, "That's good," then orders him to prove his worth and skill. The MC's command: start by destroying the Awakened Association. The guild members are stunned. Moments later, the visitors are already on their boat, sailing away from the island. On board, the guild leader thinks the demand was extreme, but without the MC, their guild has no future. He says they will be destroyed eventually, and that they need to bring down the 3 great guilds. He orders his men to investigate, and if they succeed, they will become rich. Back on the island, Nuri asks her master why he gave such a crazy order. The MC replies that he had no real reason, and admits that the task is practically impossible. Nuri explains that the association is made up of 100 sub-guilds and 3 leading guilds. She says the 3 biggest ones are Red Dragon, Valkyrie, and Brave Crimson. While Eugene listens quietly, the MC says he already knows and does not expect the Aries Guild to complete the task, which confuses Nuri. He explains that if they somehow manage to accomplish an impossible mission, then they would indeed be useful. But with a wicked smile, he reveals that this is not his true purpose, and that their usefulness lies elsewhere. Nuri is shocked to realize they will be the excuse to attack the association. With hatred in his eyes, the MC asks if she thinks he has forgotten his past. He swears to erase from existence every person who helped take the life of his beloved grandmother. He says the Aries Guild will be the spark that ignites his revenge, leaving Nuri terrified. Eugene thinks they deserve whatever is coming, and that they won't receive a quick end. The scene shifts to a commercial building in a busy part of the city. Inside a room, the leader of the Aries Guild is confronted by a mysterious woman. The leader of Valkyrie says she heard he has been researching the 3 great guilds. The man becomes nervous and, in his thoughts, curses his men for being idiots. She warns him not to even think about denying it because they already found evidence of his schemes. She says she finds it interesting that he began acting behind the backs of stronger guilds. She also mentions that all of this began right after his visit to the S-Class awakened man on the island. The man with glasses panics, thinking they are truly doomed now. The woman tells him to calm down, saying she won't take action against his group at that moment. She explains that her guild serves as a guardian of Korea and does not act like the Red Dragon. She only wants to know what kind of agreement he made with the S-Class Awakened for all of this. She imagines the worst scenario, one involving the mysterious awakened man from the isolated island. The worst outcome would be if that powerful awakened became the target of all Korea. Because of this fear, the Aries Guild leader becomes extremely nervous and starts trying to explain the situation to her. Meanwhile, someone else is observing them from a distance. Meanwhile, on the island, Nuri is training intensely in the gym. Eugene trains beside her and wonders how the blonde ended up with the MC in the first place. Suddenly, Eugene's phone starts ringing, and she assumes the intelligence service left her there and forgot about her. She answers and immediately complains about being abandoned. But the person on the other end tells her it's something worse. Hearing the news, Eugene is completely shocked and can't understand anything she just heard. She runs to the MC and informs him that she received a call from the Secret Service. The MC looks at the phone and asks what is going on, while Eugene tries to explain. Back on the street, the Aries Guild leader and his men leave the building looking tense. At that moment, someone approaches from behind and asks if he is the leader of Aries. The man and his subordinates turn around confused and ask who the stranger is. Back at a cafe, the Valkyrie leader is drinking while watching the street. Suddenly, a loud sound catches her attention, and she is shocked. Immediately after, a massive explosion occurs, destroying the entire place. Elsewhere, the Red Dragon leader becomes irritated that someone joined the enemy. He wonders if the traitor thought he could escape and remembers completely crushing him earlier. At that moment, the MC sees the news of the terrorist attack in Seoul on his phone. Smiling, he says the man proved his worth and announces he will now accept the Aries Guild. In the sky, a private plane speeds toward its destination. Upon arrival, the MC steps out of the plane while someone asks what they just heard. Inside an office, a man is shocked to learn that the hero plans to attack the association. Selene explains that the Aries Guild leader was attacked in central Seoul. Fortunately, Sung-ho from Valkyrie intervened, but the Aries leader was injured and his men were not. Someone adds that the reason behind the attack is still unknown. It is then revealed that the Aries Guild is now fully under the MC's control. The man in the office panics and asks how and when this happened. His colleague says it's normal to be shocked since they also only recently found out. The young woman explains that the MC believes the association attacked his new subordinate and retaliated. The older man responds that they still don't know who the real culprit is. At that moment, he realizes the truth behind everything and falls into despair. The young woman confirms that the MC orchestrated the attack so he could take over Aries, and now uses it as justification for revenge against those who harmed his grandmother. Inside the car, the driver asks the MC if they are heading to the intelligence service. The MC says no, instead, they are going to the Valkyrie Guild. The driver confirms while Nuri and Eugene appear worried about what will happen next. The blonde companion draws her master's attention with concern. The MC says he understands what she means, and that not everyone in the association is bad. He also says he will not let his grandmother's death go unavenged, but he agrees she is right, and that there is no need to wipe out everyone. He then reveals that he plans to use the association for his own goals once he takes control of it. The MC says he will visit the Valkyrie Guild first, because they might prove useful. He wants to confirm if they are worth sparing before attacking the association. He adds that it would be ideal if the good ones could also serve his plans. Shortly after, the car stops in front of a massive commercial building in the city. Inside, a man urgently warns that an S-Class Awakened has arrived to attack their guild. However, the Valkyrie leader appears and tells everyone to stay calm for now. She explains that if the visitor intended to destroy the place, he would have already done so. She then orders the staff to evacuate and says she will do everything she can to avoid a confrontation. In the guild's hallway, the two groups finally come face to face to discuss what happened. The MC directly asks if the woman there is the leader of the Valkyrie Guild. The young woman confirms that her name is Park Seon and that she is indeed the master of that awakened guild. In his thoughts, the MC notes that she is much stronger than the rumors suggested. He realizes she possesses a rare ability and could be very useful while she tries to defend herself. Park Seon says she confronted the man but never intended to attack him or the MC, but the MC cuts her off and brings up the Ilsum Guild. The woman is completely shocked and speechless upon hearing that guild's name. The MC asks if she is really going to claim she didn't know they were involved. Terrified, she thinks about how the Ilsum massacre apparently wasn't enough to satisfy his revenge. She realizes he wants revenge on the entire association because he believes everyone is guilty. The MC then demands that she explain in full detail everything she knows about the case. Park Seon says her guild was dissolved to hold Ilsum accountable for their crimes. However, the president of the association hid everything after receiving a huge bribe from Ilsum. Park Seon tried to protest, but she had no chance against the powerful Red Dragon Guild. She continues, explaining that if the truth were revealed, the entire association would collapse. The Valkyrie leader says that even though it is wrong, they must protect the country. The MC steps closer and questions her silence, interpreting it as approval. With a dark aura, he asks whether she thinks she is innocent just because she didn't get involved. Panicking, The woman thinks that no matter what she says, he will kill everyone. Seeing what's happening, the guild members shout for him to stop and create a protective barrier, but the MC breaks through it and grabs the leader by the neck, cutting off her breath instantly. One of the Valkyrie men becomes furious and charges to save her. However, Nori steps forward and blocks the attack with her weapon. She follows up with a powerful kick that sends him flying back. Then Eugene activates her draconic transformation and joins the fight. With her ability, she captures another guild member and threatens to damage her face. The MC still holds the leader and says he admires her commitment to the greater good. He adds that for him, this is a personal matter involving his family's revenge. He then asks her if she will still cling to the greater good even when facing her own end. Crying, the Valkyrie leader begs him to take only her life as punishment. She asks him to spare the others and says she will bear full responsibility. Meanwhile, the young apprentice immobilizes the man who attacked her with her massive weapon. With hatred in his eyes, the MC says that what she is asking for is complete absurdity. At the Red Dragon Guild headquarters, two men walk out of the building discussing business, when the older one suddenly turns in shock and asks his subordinate to repeat himself. At that moment, the president's phone begins ringing and vibrating, so he checks the caller and answers in confusion, demanding to know what is happening. A mysterious voice explains that their situation has become more complicated because their target has worsened everything and is proving to be a much bigger problem than expected. The caller then says that the target is heading toward President Qian's current location, causing the president to panic and immediately change his earlier request. He shouts desperately for them to come protect him right away, but the man on the phone mocks him for being scared, saying only they can stop the target. He adds that reinforcements have already been sent, then smugly comments that it is disappointing to see the great president trembling in fear, stating that his fee will not be discounted. Furious, the president throws the phone to the ground and yells about who that bastard thinks he is, while ordering his assistant to gather everyone and prepare for battle. The subordinate obeys instantly, and the guild leader reassures himself that no matter the enemy's power, he has the strength of the guild and one more powerful ally, smiling as he says they will settle everything today. Meanwhile, inside the MC's car, the Valkyrie leader sits beside him, visibly nervous about the situation she has been dragged into. A flashback shows the MC releasing her from his grip earlier, allowing her to breathe again, and telling her he spared her and her guild because they may still be useful to him. He orders her to follow, because they are going to attack the Red Dragon Guild, which brings us back to the present moment in the car, where she asks why he brought her along. The MC explains that she must testify about the corruption and crimes of the president, saying her testimony will justify his future actions, while Nuri watches him silently. With a serious expression, he declares he will punish criminals but gather those who follow him, revealing he spared her so she could witness his will being carried out directly. Understanding his plan at last, the Valkyrie leader agrees to cooperate and follow his orders. The car suddenly stops when the driver informs the MC that something blocks the way, and they see a massive army of suited men completely sealing off the street. The group steps out to face the gathered Red Dragon Guild members, and the MC turns to his companions, telling them not to interfere because this revenge belongs to him alone. One of the guild members identifies him and immediately orders everyone to attack the bastard at once. The MC responds instantly by unleashing his power and effortlessly destroying the first wave of enemies. Far away, the president watches the live transmission of his men screaming for help, while the calm man beside him asks if this is really the awakened Class S he heard about. The observer remarks that the MC is not as impressive as expected, and mentions that the president is lucky because the hero is still holding back tremendously. The panicked president then begs the man to stop the MC immediately, and the mysterious person smiles, saying he will handle it but will demand a generous additional reward. Back on the battlefield, another enemy goes down, and the MC stands with smoke rising from his hands as he observes the destruction around him. Amid the ruins, he wonders aloud if he has already taken care of all the small fry. The Valkyrie leader is stunned that one man defeated the entire Red Dragon Guild, realizing she made the right choice in cooperating with Taehyung. Nuri smiles and comments that their master was merciful, since no one died this time. With a thoughtful look, the MC focuses on the new enemy approaching, then tells both apprentices to stay back. A massive explosion of fire suddenly erupts in front of the entire group, leaving the girls confused while Seon quickly forms a protective barrier around them. The MC remains standing in the middle of the flames without a single burn, shocking the blonde visitor who expected the attack to injure him. The hero calmly acknowledges the opponent's strength, and the newcomer mocks him, saying that was only a greeting for the world's hero. With a smug smile, the man reveals he is also a Class S awakened, and introduces himself as Dylan Lane, from the criminal organization Another, terrifying the girls. The two girls stare blankly, unsure what Another truly means, but Seon immediately understands the threat in front of them. She recalls that while most awakened use their powers to protect, there exists a dark group that uses them purely for evil. A flashback shows Seon confronting Director Chun about the organization long ago, and although he denied everything, she never stopped suspecting him. Back in the present, Dylan smirks confidently at the MC, while Seon realizes Director Chun had been working with the criminals all along. Behind them, the president shouts that the MC is not the only Class S, and that he will now pay for everything. But Dylan is irritated that Taehyung is not reacting dramatically to his entrance. With a bored expression, the MC replies that he already knows who the blonde adversary is, and analyzes his stats. Finding nothing impressive, he steps forward and says he needs to correct something, releasing a dark aura while declaring that the man will not be his death, because many have already tried. Dylan turns to Director Chun and tells him to run to a shelter, but the old man refuses to take orders from a mercenary and insists on watching the fight up close. Furious, Dylan yells for him to leave unless he wants to become barbecue, causing the grumbling president to retreat while muttering curses. The opponent turns back to the MC, saying he has every right to be arrogant, but now he will face reality. Sensing danger, the MC warns the girls to stay back as Dylan prepares a powerful attack and asks if the hero will keep boasting afterward. Then Dylan unleashes his devastating spell, Inferno, which takes the shape of a massive demonic skull rushing toward the MC. The protagonist is surprised by the speed of the sixth circle spell, and wonders if it comes from the enemy's unique ability. Far behind, Nuri shouts for her master as the attack's heat becomes unbearable, and the pink flames begin melting the ground. Seon worries whether the young man can withstand such extreme heat, though the MC remains confident despite the overwhelming flames. Dylan, however, grows serious and prepares another powerful strike, saying he will not underestimate a Class S opponent. Concentrating all his energy, the man with orange hair vows to end him and envelops the MC in immense pink power. The dark pink energy collides violently, creating a massive hurricane around Taehyung as Dylan struggles to control his own overwhelming force. A gigantic explosion erupts at the battlefield, shaking the ground beneath Director Chun and his men who watch through a transmission. Dylan apologizes to the director for what is about to happen and tells him to consider it a free renovation of the guild's headquarters. He releases another magic circle and unleashes his most powerful attack, causing a pink explosion that tears apart everything around them. The guild headquarters becomes completely engulfed in flames as Dylan laughs proudly, boasting that no one can stop his fire magic. Though furious at the destruction, Director Chun convinces himself the sacrifice is worth it if the attack kills the MC, claiming the building doesn't matter anymore. Eugene anxiously comments that the flames melt concrete, and that even for the master, this attack might be too overwhelming, saying she has never seen fire of this magnitude. Nuri then takes charge, ordering everyone to evacuate the survivors because the next clash will be even worse, and only they can reduce the damage. She tells them not to worry, insisting their master would never fall to such an attack. Meanwhile, the pink explosion continues, consuming the entire building as the destruction spreads. Then, a vortex of dark energy suddenly appears and begins devouring all the flames at once, leaving Dylan shocked and speechless as he demands to know what is happening. A calm voice responds that the flames are impressive for the standards of this world, but to him, such power is nothing more than basic. With a confident smile, the MC says his opponents remain far beneath him. Dylan grits his teeth in irritation, while Taehyung summons a spear made entirely from his dark magic. In an instant, the MC launches forward and strikes Dylan with overwhelming force as a red explosion bursts across the battlefield. From afar, the Red Dragon president watches everything unfold with terror, while the MC's crimson energy engulfs the opponent completely. The massive red blast lights up the distant city skyline, glowing bright against the horizon. Meanwhile, a man and a red-haired girl arrive at the scene and examine the aftermath with disbelief. The man sighs, saying they apparently arrived too late to witness the battle. Celine remarks that there is nothing they could do now even if they rushed in, but her partner replies that Taehyung won't take long and that they should prepare to clean up afterward. Back in the battle, Dylan, though badly burned, has survived, and now faces the MC in the middle of the flames with a furious expression, determined to continue fighting no matter what. Walking through the fire, Taehyung says the enemy's sweet revenge ends here, and even asks with a smile if he should ease the tension with a little fun. Dylan becomes enraged that the MC dares to underestimate both him and his physical strength, yet Taehyung continues moving forward without being affected. When Dylan launches a fiery strike, Taehyung raises his hand and blocks it effortlessly, prompting Dylan to shout that such power is not exclusive to the protagonist. The blonde attacker then unleashes a burst of red and golden flames, creating an explosion as it hits the MC, and mockingly asks how he is handling the attack. But he is stunned to see Taehyung standing there holding the attack back, praising Dylan's quick adaptability. With a confident smile, Taehyung asks if that is really all he has, shocking Dylan, who cannot believe the hero endured everything without a scratch. Confused, Dylan demands to know how a supposed physical type awakened survived his magic, but Taehyung corrects him by revealing he is a true mage and that Dylan's magic is nothing but basic. Horrified, Dylan repeats the claim that his magic is basic, while the MC reflects internally that the real difference between them and demons lies in instinct, not skills. He considers how demons draw strength from their desire to fight, while humans in this world easily lose their will when facing a stronger opponent. Dylan appears to have reached the limit of his power, Yet he suddenly apologizes and says he underestimated Taehyung by assuming he relied only on physical strength. Laughing, he claims he has finally found a worthy opponent and is ready to use his full power. The MC smiles and praises his fighting spirit, asking for even more fun as the duel continues. Dylan wastes no time and forms a massive wall of fire, and as the flames rise, Taehyung feels his arms burning and notices the opponent is indeed much stronger than before. Dylan shouts for the fire to compress and overwhelm its target, causing the MC to briefly feel pressure and pause. The enemy then conjures a powerful attack called Volcano, and a huge mouth of lava erupts from the ground with several serpent-like streams rushing toward the MC. Caught off guard, Taehyung watches the lava serpent strike as Dylan prepares yet another ability called Flame Wedge, which spins rapidly before slamming into the hero. A colossal explosion of pink flames engulfs the entire area, and far away the girls helping survivors watch the scene with deep worry. Dylan confidently believes that not even an 8th rank enemy could survive such an attack, and assumes the MC is now fatally injured. However, the Demon Lord calmly appears holding one of the lava serpents with ease, shocking Dylan completely. Taehyung shatters the serpent with one blow, and extinguishes the remaining fire with a single stomp before staring coldly at his opponent while his dark aura rises. Dylan screams in panic, unable to understand how the MC refuses to die and keeps hurling fire attacks in desperation. Unfazed, Taehyung simply watches the flames approach before raising his arm to end the fight once and for all. With a swift motion, the MC unleashes a red energy strike that tears through the opponent, severing Dylan's arms and leaving a deep wound across his chest. Confused and trembling, Dylan stares up at Taehyung, who steps on his chest and forces him violently to the ground, establishing complete dominance. The blonde attacker coughs uncontrollably from the blow, while the MC's cold gaze shows zero remorse as he continues pressing down on him. Dylan begins sobbing in fear, and Taehyung asks mockingly whether he has lost both arms, and urges him to use magic to regrow them so the fight can continue. Desperate, Dylan tries to speak, catching Taehyung's curiosity, but the MC realizes the man has finally reached his true limit. He tells Dylan that the fight was fun, and that he will reward him by finishing him off with magic, prompting Dylan to beg for mercy while offering money, loyalty, or secret information about his organization. But Taehyung replies that unfortunately, he cannot use magic in this world, and quotes a saying about advanced power being indistinguishable from magic. The MC then delivers the final blow, causing Dylan to explode as Sion turns her gaze away in discomfort. Standing with bloodied arms, Taehyung remains still as the dark energy fades and reveals the enormous crater created by the final strike. With the battle over, 2 observers approach in shock, and the man comments that not even a level 5 enemy could cause such destruction. His partner agrees and says they are fortunate the damage wasn't even worse. Celine expresses relief that the fight has ended, while healers nearby tend to the injured. At that moment, Nuri arrives and catches the attention of the duo, apologizing on behalf of her master and promising they won't run from responsibility. The pair reassures her that everything is fine, stating they would accept it even if all of Seoul had been destroyed. The man then asks who the hero fought to create such devastation, and the blonde apprentice reveals it was an S-rank awakened, leaving them speechless. He says that's impossible because only 10 S-ranks exist in the world, and all of them are controlled by their respective countries. The Valkyrie leader then explains that the enemy came from a mysterious place called Another, and adds that the real threat is not the association. She warns that they must act quickly, as this situation has now escalated into a serious national security issue for South Korea. Inside an imposing building where a major meeting is set to take place, the agency director is shocked when Sion mentions the organization Another. She tells him she believes he already knows about the mysterious group, and insists that the situation has escalated to the point where hiding the truth is no longer an option. The director reveals that only high-ranking officials were aware of the group's existence, and that Another has been spotted in Japan, China, and several other regions. He explains that it is a terrorist organization, which is why the government decided to keep everything classified. The MC thinks the decision is foolish, comparing it to a bird burying its head in the sand and believing it is hidden. Seon pushes back and says that because of the recent incident, the truth must be revealed to the public. She states that soon everyone in South Korea will learn about the threat and the clash between Taehyung and the other S-rank. With the association dissolved, she suggests forming a new awakened center and publicly blaming the former president, while claiming the MC was sent to prevent disaster. Meanwhile, a holographic meeting convenes with leaders from around the world, and a red-haired woman coldly announces Dylan's death. One leader mocks the fallen member, saying the crazy man finally died and that he just won a bet. With a stern expression, the woman repeats the name of the deceased, leaving everyone stunned by the confirmation. Another man realizes the report is true, and becomes deeply troubled as they learn the fight happened in South Korea during a mission involving a new S-rank. He reflects that Dylan was one of their strongest, which means the situation is extremely serious. The leader orders contact with someone named Chai Jinping to gather more information, and a man named Gandharves is assigned to travel to Korea. Gandharves agrees eagerly, and says he looks forward to meeting the one who defeated his partner. Back in Seoul, sitting alone on a bench, Taehyung wonders what his new companions are thinking, and Seon says a little tension is necessary to keep the group alert. She adds that they didn't need to be so stiff at that moment, but the dragon-transformed Eugene disagrees, and claims the blonde apprentice can already handle several enemies alone. Changing the topic, Nori turns to the MC and asks him to choose a team name, prompting Eugene to suggest Invincible, since their leader is the strongest. Nori thinks for a moment and proposes White Dragon Team, but Eugene gets annoyed, asking if they are some mix-and-match dish of other guilds. Seon joins in and suggests the name Untouchables, explaining that it means no one can lay a hand on them. The girls quickly like the idea and agree on the name, officially forming Team Untouchables, and Taehyung gives a simple nod of approval. Suddenly, the entire group looks up at the sky in shock as the portal begins expanding rapidly. The blonde apprentice recognizes the situation, saying it's just like the department store incident, while Seon and Eugene tense up at the emerging threat. The MC, however, stares confidently at the portal as Nuri reassures herself by reminding them that with him present, nothing is frightening. Inside the swirling black vortex, a pair of glowing red eyes appears, radiating malicious energy as other awakened flee the scene. A massive draconic claw tears through the portal, followed by the emergence of a colossal war dragon, leaving Taehyung briefly wondering if this is some kind of joke. A status window reveals the beast's name and immense power, explaining that it lost consciousness after violating the terms of a mysterious contract. Seon checks her watch and is horrified to see that the creature ranks as a level 7 threat, and Eugene recognizes its codename. Seon realizes its energy and appearance are identical to the first dragon the MC defeated, and Nuri casually suggests naming it Red Dragon 2, shocking the women beside her. She confidently adds that her master will defeat it again without a scratch right before the massive creature steps on Taehyung. His companions scream in panic, but the dragon suddenly hears a voice commenting that it's surprising something dead appeared. The MC emerges completely unharmed and states that the creature doesn't seem undead, wondering if it was revived by some resurrection spell. Deciding to worry about answers later, he snaps his fingers and prepares to fight. He leaps into the air while the dragon roars, landing a punch on the creature's head and shouting that he will cut it off again. The beast glares furiously, but the MC orders it to lower its gaze before delivering a devastating kick to its head. Landing on the ground, Taehyung faces the enormous monster defiantly as it swings its massive tail at him. In an incredible feat, the MC grabs the tail with both hands, and red energy pours from his arms as he strains against the force. With overwhelming strength, he lifts the enormous dragon and hurls it through the battlefield, leaving it stunned. Coldly, he commands the creature to get back up so he can continue the fight. Drawing his sword from his portal, he prepares for another clash and leaps over the beast's head, lifting his dark blade for the final strike. Far away, a streak of green lightning tears across the sky of a volcanic region, and someone remarks that what is happening is absolute madness. A mysterious group watches the unstable landscape, while one of them discusses the emergence of a level 7 enemy. The white-bearded man expresses concern because such a threat was not supposed to appear for another 3 years. A hooded man then orders them to stop talking, and another warns that the barrier in the area has weakened. Their leader turns to a girl named Erin and asks if she can handle the task ahead. Erin stares silently at the flowing lava below, clearly reflecting on the weight of the question. With a confident expression, she replies that it will be difficult, but she believes she can manage it, only for the hooded man to demand a firm, decisive answer instead of something vague. Correcting herself instantly, the red-haired girl declares with full determination that she will accomplish it without failure. One of the members then states that, from this point onward, everything will follow Erin's command. The leader orders everyone to take their positions so the plan can begin, and then he turns to Erin and tells her to start. She brings her hands together and begins forming a large sphere of blue energy. At the same moment, the hooded man raises his hand to support her and helps propel the spell forward. The rest of the group channels their own energies as well, adding power to the combined attack. Smiling sinisterly, the leader whispers the word annihilation to the team before lifting his hand toward the sky and pouring dark energy into the spell. All their powers merge, forming a rapidly spinning dark vortex that grows more unstable by the second. Erin looks upward in shock, unable to comprehend the overwhelming force taking shape before her eyes. With glowing red eyes, the hooded man smiles and declares that this marks the beginning of the apocalypse. As he speaks, the dark portal rotates even more violently, gathering enough energy to unleash catastrophe upon the world. Back in the city, everything appears peaceful under the bright blue sky until chaos suddenly erupts and crowds flee in terror, shouting for help. A group of hunters quickly detects the threat and estimates it to be a level 9 enemy. Without warning, an explosion blasts the group into the air, and a boy in a gray hoodie lands safely but panics, wondering what is happening. Dark, twisted tentacles begin to rise throughout the city, creating destruction everywhere. The boy turns around after sensing something behind him, but reacts too late as a violent strike leaves a trail of blood across the ground. Meanwhile, at an airport, officials announce that awakened from all over the world will be gathering. Inside a plane, Taehyung looks out the window and asks if the S-rank awakened will also arrive. His subordinate replies that at least 3 from the United States and China are expected. Seon approaches and informs her master that they have reached their destination, prompting him to stand, as she remarks that tensions between nations will be unavoidable. She wonders whether he will remain calm in the chaos ahead, while Nuri asks if that means Anderson from the United States will be joining them as well. Taehyung gives a sideways smile, finding the entire situation amusing, and Nuri remembers that the enemy is ranked 9, confident that it won't be an issue. He pats her head gently and reassures her that everything will be fine. After leaving the plane, a man greets them and confirms if they are the awakened from Korea. Inside a car, the driver says he will explain the full situation, and Seon finds it odd that a rank B awakened is controlling the flow of information. She begins to suspect the circumstances must be extremely dire. As the car moves away from the airport, the driver explains that the enemy has been alternating between destruction and rest for 10 days. He adds that there are already 30 rank B awakened and 12 rank A on site. He continues, saying 5 rank S awakened are present, and that the United States, Russia, and the United Kingdom have sent their strongest fighters. Confused, Nuri asks if there aren't supposed to be only 4 total heroes worldwide, but the guide smiles and explains that major nations keep hidden forces to themselves. After exiting the vehicle, the man states that rank B awakened will handle logistics, while rank A were selected for healing and buffs. Taehyung calmly remarks that naturally, the rank S awakened will lead the assault. Inside another building, someone informs a man that the Korean awakened have arrived. The man who survived earlier incidents asks if this now means 6 S-rank fighters are assembled, and his companion confirms it. Irritated, the man mutters that he wanted to keep China's rank S hidden. His companion questions whether they truly need so many powerful awakeners. With a sinister smile, the hooded man replies that perhaps even this won't be enough, confusing the younger man who asks what he means. Suddenly, the hooded man looks horrified as he examines a bracelet that is barely containing an injury despite its ability to heal anything. The wounded awakener explains that the damage was caused merely by the energy leaking from the monster. As the dark sphere is shown, he admits he didn't even fight the creature. Its presence alone was enough to inflict the wound. In the waiting room, Nuri comments in surprise to her master, shocked to see that Jane, a rank A awakened from England, is also present. The blonde apprentice becomes excited, saying even the strongest of their summoning rivals have gathered. She then points toward a famous healer, known as a saint for his extraordinary powers. Suddenly, a boy in a black hoodie draws everyone's attention by standing alone, and he walks straight toward Taehyung, asking if he is the S rank awakened from Korea. The MC simply gives a sideways smile, amused by the boldness. A screen appears showing the newcomer's name as Lei Fong, revealing that he has undergone multiple surgeries. Lei Fong turns mockingly to another awakener and asks if he recognizes him, prompting Nuri to step forward and demand to know who he is. Keeping a stern expression, Lei Fong tells her to move aside because he wants to speak directly to Taehyung. Meanwhile, the other awakened whisper among themselves, noting that this is China's newly risen S-rank hero. Someone approaches the two young men and asks what issue the rookie Lei Fong has with them, but the Chinese awakener clicks his tongue dismissively and steps back. The hooded man then turns again to Taehyung and asks if he truly is Korea's S-rank, thinking to himself that the MC looks like a coward before abruptly saying he has more important things to do. He adds that Korea won't be of much help and that stronger nations will be needed, irritating Nuri, who mutters that none of them compare to her master. Taehyung simply glances back calmly, completely unfazed by the provocation. At that moment, his eyes shift toward another figure, and he studies the person intently. A screen reveals his name as Benjamin, labeled as an S-rank sorcerer, though Nuri says he is widely known as a saint-like healer from Manchester. Taehyung appears confused as another note reveals Benjamin is the servant of someone unknown, and he wonders what that man's real identity is. Benjamin approaches and asks whether the Korean hero needs something from him, prompting Nuri to excitedly remind her master that this is the saint she mentioned earlier. The MC stares at him and asks directly if he is truly a saint-type healer, and Benjamin smiles, confirming that he specializes in curing status ailments. Taehyung smirks and says he initially mistook him for a wizard, causing the healer's smile to instantly vanish as he stares in shock. Benjamin awkwardly laughs and insists that healing magic does not exist, trying to cover his reaction. Nuri explains that only healers of the healing type can heal, and Taehyung repeats with a smirk that healing magic is definitely not real. Nervous, Benjamin lets out a strained laugh and quickly excuses himself before hurrying away. Taehyung casually tells Nuri not to pay attention to him, dismissing the odd interaction. Soon after, all the heroes gather together, as it becomes clear that the next battle is about to begin. Every awakened present maintains a firm and serious expression, preparing mentally for what is coming. Taehyung simply crosses his arms with confidence, showing a bold smile to the others. In that tense moment, Gulen steps forward, preparing himself fully for the fight, and announcing that he will now go all out. From the end of the street, the assembled heroes look over the city, now completely destroyed by the enemy's presence. Nuri scans the area and remarks that she cannot see Anderson anywhere, while Eugene assumes the strategy is to use the weaker S ranks first to exhaust the monster. She continues, explaining that Lei Feng and Gao Lin will support Anderson's final attack. Taehyung's assistant then comments that China clearly believes the fight will be easy for them. The MC turns to Sion and asks why she considers the situation so dangerous, and she explains that China has willingly given up the spoils of battle, proof of their desperation. Taehyung acknowledges the severity of what is happening and what is at stake, then orders his companions to retreat from the area. Nuri smiles and says that, as rank B, they would naturally stay in the rear, but Taehyung corrects her and orders them to leave the battlefield completely. With his eyes glowing, Taehyung admits that the upcoming fight will be extremely dangerous, saying he felt the energy from Korea but never imagined it would be so powerful and terrifying. Suddenly, hunters around them panic and scream as they struggle to understand the phenomenon unfolding. Gao asks if it has begun, just as Taehyung opens his arsenal portal and summons a demonic sword that drains the vitality of its wielder. He warns the blade that he is its master and that it must obey. At that moment, a gigantic and horrifying eye appears in the sky, watching the ruined city below. The wind, generated by the creature, blasts the awakened backward, yet Taehyung alone remains standing firm with his crimson sword ready. He shouts for all rank B awakened to retreat immediately. One hunter mutters that the enemy is far too powerful, and asks another if Taehyung can handle it, but the man admits reluctantly that he is unsure. His companion clarifies that opponents are ranked based on levels, and says the enormous eye appears to belong to royalty, making it essentially undefeatable. The blonde awakener tries to pretend he didn't hear that, and insists that, despite everything, he still believes they can win, though his friend questions whether the power difference isn't overwhelmingly large. Taehyung says that is exactly why they are there, but admits he cannot do it alone. Another hunter remarks that even with the other S ranks, the fight will be extremely difficult and asks about the plan. At that moment, Taehyung charges forward on his own, prompting someone to call him insane. Despite the danger, the Korean hero rushes toward the monstrous eye with his sword glowing, inspiring the blonde awakener to raise his weapon and shout for everyone to advance together. The hunters erupt with excitement, motivated by the presence of Anderson, the strongest in the world, fighting alongside them. Anderson smirks, remembering the man who had defeated him effortlessly before. A screen then appears, warning that the eye will reveal its true power for the final battle. Taehyung admits that the creature possesses greater strength and endurance than he does, explaining that it was once a god in the flesh adorned with divinity. Another screen warns him that the divine power of the decadent fragment is dangerously unstable. With red energy surging around his arm, Taehyung prepares to strike before launching himself into the air and delivering a powerful blow with his crimson blade. Floating before the massive eye, he makes a disgusted face at the sight. Suddenly, black thorns burst from the spot his attack landed, and a screen identifies this as the chain of destruction. The thorns transform into small, shadowy monsters as Taehyung lands on the ground and braces himself to face them. He leaps again, challenging the creatures and declaring that they will see who wins. Meanwhile, Anderson becomes surrounded by swarms of these newly formed monsters. With his shining sword, Anderson fights them off, but the remnants of the creatures evolve into rank A enemies. Realizing the danger, he shouts for all rank A awakened to advance. The hunters rally and prepare for battle, shouting for everyone to hold the line as the new wave of monsters closes in. The MC floats in the air while dodging the barrage of dark attacks fired at him, countering with bursts of purple aura against the monsters emerging from the giant eye. A frustrated hunter complains that the Korean hero ruined the original plan, forcing them to deal with all the minions. Anderson cuts down several creatures and boasts that he is stronger than everyone there combined, prompting another blonde awakener to ask if anyone besides Taehyung can actually face the main creature head-on. From afar, Taehyung's companions watch helplessly, admitting they cannot intervene but agreeing they must still protect the rank B awakened. One girl tells the other to call for reinforcements, while Nuri prepares to act. On the battlefield, one of the heroes becomes surrounded, grabbed by multiple monsters at once, unable to escape as the creatures then charge toward Gao Lin. Gao, shocked by Taehyung's effortless fighting, yells to Anderson that the Korean awakener is being overwhelmed. Despite Taehyung's strength, the blonde hero realizes the Korean is beginning to feel the immense pressure of the battle. Anderson grows anxious, wondering what would happen if the protagonist were defeated. A black and red tentacle suddenly lashes out and strikes Taehyung, and he looks at his hand in horror as the skin and muscle begin to decompose. The giant eye stares directly at him, surrounded by a sinister flame-like aura. Enraged, the demon lord unfurls his crimson wings and calls the monster a bastard. The creature activates the gaze of madness, but Taehyung stares right back without fear and activates his berserk mode. With glowing eyes, he charges the eye and shouts that he is already insane as his attack connects. His strike hits the surface of the eye, but a magical barrier reveals itself, prompting Taehyung to hammer it repeatedly with his blade. When the sword fails to make progress, he drops it and begins punching the barrier with his bare hands, blow after blow, refusing to stop. Though nothing seems to work at first, cracks eventually begin to spread across the barrier's surface. The force of his attacks generates a gust of wind around him, shocking one hunter who wonders if the Korean hero has completely lost his mind. Anderson notices the monsters have stopped multiplying in response to the attacks on the eye, and when someone asks if they should assist, Another says they can only fight the weaker creatures. As the girl slices through one beast, she worries the monsters might start multiplying again, and another warns that retreat would be nearly impossible if that happens. A brown-haired warrior then decides to join Taehyung on the front line, while the blonde awakener takes charge and orders everyone to adjust their movements according to the changing battlefield. Following the command, the hunters push forward through the ruined city to support the front line. Even after the relentless assault, Taehyung realizes the creature is far from defeated and observes how the barrier still holds despite the cracks. Anderson prepares his own attack and unleashes Wind Cutter, sending a massive blade of energy toward the barrier. To his shock, the attack is completely nullified, with no visible effect. Taehyung turns to him and states bluntly that the attack was entirely useless. Another hunter rushes in, punching the monster's shell repeatedly, while someone else uses all his strength to throw a boulder in an attempt to break the defense. A different awakener summons purple energy spikes that rise from the ground and slice through the eye's attacks. Red tentacles erupt again and begin chasing that hunter, while another awakener screams in frustration at the front line's chaotic behavior. A moment later, one hero collapses, clutching an injured arm that is rapidly disintegrating as he stares at it in disbelief. His companion tells him to stop whining because they'll need to amputate it, but before they can act, another hunter shouts for everyone to dodge. The young man barely escapes as a red hand strikes, but his unfortunate comrade, Mulligan, is hit and instantly begins to disintegrate. Another awakener freezes in horror, staring at the scene and realizing they cannot win against the creature. Anderson approaches Taehyung and asks if there truly is no way to defeat it, and the MC replies that breaking the barrier would take 100 years, long enough for humanity to perish. Shocked, the blonde awakener asks if that means the monster cannot be stopped at all. Taehyung admits honestly that there is no way to stop it, but Anderson declares that he will still do everything he can, and Taehyung agrees to advance beside him. The MC reflects that this level of crisis is normal in the demon realm, while the surrounding hunters cheer in relief now that reinforcements have arrived. Meanwhile, Sion gathers the others and stops them from rushing ahead alone, while dark tentacles lash out and force the heroes to defend themselves as best as they can. From afar, the colossal eye watches the battlefield and manipulates the red tentacles that attack relentlessly. Taehyung grows irritated when he notices one of the tentacles aiming directly at Nuri, who is bravely fighting the minions without seeing the incoming danger. He instantly flies forward at high speed and shouts for her to dodge, and she looks up in shock just as the attack is about to strike her. She closes her eyes, expecting the worst, but opens them to find her master, shielding her with his wings, while telling her he had warned the blonde to evade. Exhausted but protective, he reassures the frightened girl while admitting he could crush the deity if he were able to use his magic fully there. Suddenly, a black star appears in the sky, glowing ominously as the MC senses a familiar energy returning to him. With excitement, Taehyung spreads his wings and announces that his power has finally returned, and his injured hand begins to regenerate with a green glow. Nuri steps back in fear and asks what kind of energy is surrounding him, and he tells her she will understand soon as he touches her head and teleports her away mid-question. Smiling, he lifts his hand and declares that his magic has completely restored itself. Meanwhile, the other hunters desperately try to escape the pursuing shadow tentacles, but the creatures catch up and begin enveloping them. One awakener is seized and brutally torn apart as the giant eye watches emotionlessly while its minions ravage everything. The surrounding heroes stare in horror, unable to decide what to do as Anderson drops his sword while being surrounded by creatures, thinking he is about to die. But just then, he notices Taehyung whispering a single word, "teleport," to his subordinate. One by one, the heroes who were about to be killed vanish. The Valkyrie leader, Lei Feng, and Gao Lin, who was trapped in a strange cocoon. Anderson, who had accepted his fate, also disappears at the last moment. Taehyung successfully teleports all the hunters to safety, leaving himself alone before the giant eye god. He tells the creature it is quite strong, as green energy pulses around him, and he prepares to face the surrounding monsters. Ignoring the lesser enemies completely, he focuses his attention on the main creature, while a powerful green aura envelops him. He prepares and casts a spell called Eclipse, instantly darkening the sun overhead. Shadows spread as all dark creatures begin dissolving, screaming as magical flames devour them. The giant eye roars while Taehyung demands to know how a creature immune to his mana drain could even exist. With a cold stare, he declares that its time has come and releases more magic as the sky turns pitch black. The completed eclipse causes the monstrous eye to disintegrate, leaving behind a sphere of darkness surrounded by a fiery crown. Suddenly, the scene shifts, and Taehyung finds himself in a frozen wasteland beneath the darkened sky. A portal opens nearby, releasing all the teleported hunters into a safe area. Nuri shouts for her master, but realizes he is not there, and Eugene also looks around in confusion. The blonde girl's companion asks where they are, and she replies that they were sent 100 kilometers away. Anderson anxiously asks where the Korean hero is, and Nuri admits, with fear, that their master must still be at the battle site. One hunter panics and wonders aloud if Taehyung didn't survive, angering Nuri, who points her sword at him. Anderson sternly warns the man to stop if he wants to remain part of the team, and Nuri apologizes while urging everyone to keep moving. Anderson recalls seeing the MC heal himself with magic right before teleporting them, and Nuri confirms that he promised they would meet again soon. Their leader is confused because he always assumed Taehyung was a warrior, not a mage. A short-haired woman insists on returning to the battlefield and asks if there is any way, and Gao Lin replies that helicopters are on the way and he intends to use them. The girls bow politely and ask to join him so they can check on their master's condition, and Gao Lin agrees, saying a strong ally is always useful. Elsewhere, a hooded man watches the devastation and acknowledges that what he sees is true magic. As he looks at the eclipse overhead, Aaron approaches and says chaos has broken out across China, and they must identify the mage capable of resisting the great magic used there. The man orders them to contact Benjamin and learn this mage's intentions. Aaron asks about Gan Harva's reaction, explaining that he is furious with the Korean hero for interfering with his mission, but the hooded leader orders him to wait because China's situation has already ended. Back at the battlefield, the sky clears, and Taehyung commands someone hiding to show themselves. A small masked shadow creature appears and kneels before him, addressing him respectfully as its king. Taehyung tells the servant to lift its head and asks where the others are, but the creature admits it sensed only the protagonist's presence. Understanding the situation, Taehyung orders his servant to open a gate immediately. The creature obeys, summoning a portal of darkness that rises from the ground before the MC. Without hesitation, Taehyung is pulled inside and travels through a tunnel of swirling purple energy before emerging into a grand throne room of golden design, where the MC appears seated casually on the throne with his legs crossed.